C3 Panther Nation, we have CJ Stroud and Bryce Young on deck today, taking a look at some of their 2021 film. Hey, man, I'm Cody Lashley, back at you again with another edition of the C3 Film Room. Welcome back to another edition of the C3 Film Room. I'm your host, Cody Lashley, 1/4 of the C3 Panthers Podcast. Joined again today by my real good friend, my brother from another mother, John from One Carolina. John, how are you, man?
Man, I'm great, man. Honored to be here, ready to look at some film, and more importantly, ready to go get them.
Yeah, man. I feel like as Panther Nation right now, we're all in that mood to go get them, man. There's a lot of good happening right now, a lot of excitement. And hey, we appreciate everybody for stopping in with the C3 Film Room. Today, we're going to be looking at some 2021 film from both Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. And, you know, Bryce Young has really been the guy who's gotten the most buzz lately, John. It seems like now every other mainstream analyst that you hear asked about who the Panthers are going to pick at number one, most people are saying Bryce Young. So I felt that it was only apt that we start with him. And this game that we have is from Miami. So this is his first game of his 2021 film.
So this would have been first game of his career, right?
Yes, this is the first game of his career at Alabama. And so this is everything that we have from that game. Is every snap of his. And see, John, right there, you see some of those things that you love already, is that he keeps his eyes downfield.
Yes.
The pocket breaks down on him, and he just moves up and finds the right player.
And really what sets him apart, Cody, is there's two things. Number one, there is the keeping the two hands on the ball, you know, while he's moving in the pocket and keeping his eyes downfield. And then also his ability to always be looking for the deeper shot. Like this could easily be, if you look at just how these routes are like concepted, like I don't really see a check down available here, but if you look at how much space there is in the open field right there, like most quarterbacks are going to take off running in that situation and just pick up whatever they can get. But he makes a layered throw over top of a safety and a linebacker, and there it is.
It's definitely one of his biggest assets, his ability to keep his eyes downfield. I think he does that the best out of any prospect in this class.
Yeah.
Fakes the handoff. Again, the pocket breaks down. He gets to the edge. Oh, it does such a nice job finding his guy at the sideline. And see, this is what he does well, man. I mean, you see it. This is literally the first game of his Alabama career, and he just knows where to go with the football. It's like for every problem the defense gives him, he has a solution.
And see, this is what I was talking about. So I had mentioned this on my show a couple of weeks ago. I was talking about RPO. Like if you notice here, there's that RPO option where he kind of hands the ball off. Look at that linebacker. That linebacker's crashing, coming down to defend that play. Not the one that's in his face, but the middle linebacker coming down to the, I guess to the line of scrimmage to play against what could be a run in that situation.
Right.
But what he does is analyze and looking to see where his hots are and things like that. He would be great in the RPO offense, not so much because of his ability to run, but because of his recognition of what's going on pre-snap. And that's where it would be, but I mean, not for nothing, he'd be good at any level, like within any offense, in my opinion, doing that. But he could also, because I know some people were like, man, there's no way he's surviving the RPO. Well, of course, if he's running, no, in the NFL, but that's not what the RPO is necessarily destined on, a quarterback running necessarily. It's an option, but you don't have to do it.
Right, and he's more than mobile enough to do it.
Right.
It's just the size in the NFL. It's what's gonna scare you. But the fact that he does have that physical ability means that the defense, they have to respect that ability for him to get outside the pocket and take off for a first down. You're not going to get that from a Kirk Cousins or a Derek Carr or even a Drew Brees like Bryce Young has been compared to so much.
No, but I will tell you one thing, Cody, that I don't necessarily like. I love everything about this guy's tape, but the one thing I don't like is, and I'm gonna get you to rewind that play right there for a second, in a second, because there's something that he done right there that I've seen him do in another game that was otherworldly. But I don't like that. I would say probably 95% of his snaps are in shotgun. Like, they're very rarely.
Yeah.
And as you notice what we did last year with the power running, like, I don't like that there's not the option to put him under center and utilize play action, because I mean, in the trenches, we have a solid offensive line. You know what I'm saying? And one of the knocks, I guess, with his height and size is how you operate at the point of attack. So if the point of attack is always going to be shotgun, then that does kind of limit some things in your running game, because like draw plays and stuff like that, even with the RPO, like it is limiting when you got a guy that's a downhill runner, say like Deontay Foreman was, for instance. Then I think this is probably which I think the Miles Sanders signing was the clear indication that we're drafting Bryce, because if you look at what Miles Sanders does versus what Deontay Foreman does. Deontay Foreman is a downhill guy. He needs to be lined up about 5 yards behind the quarterback so that he can gain momentum going into, different block and different gaps that open up for him. With Miles, though, he operates outside of structure in the RPO offense and done it to, a really good job at it last year with Philadelphia. But what I want to show you on this right here is watch his play recognition. Ball is snapped. Look at this. All this activity going on. He flips it out to this guy. He does that so well. There was a play in the I can't remember which game it was. I think it was the Georgia game. Yeah, it was absolutely the Georgia game. Trevon Walker is blitzing. Trevon Walker gets to him. He somehow sees his running back. I don't think it was it wasn't the running back. What's my guy's name? Gibbs. It wasn't the running back. It was one of his receivers that he flips the ball, like kind of laterals the ball back to or whatever, like sort of like an option lateral, and then throws a block. Now, obviously, who is Bryce Young on block, in real life? But like, the point is that to recognize that play and to see all of that in real time and to process that amount of information, that's like next level, bro. But go ahead.
It really is. And let me ask you this: do you think? Right, because I've been a big proponent that I think this coaching staff, whoever they draft, they're going to have no problem molding the offense around the quarterback, rather than trying to make a square peg fit a round hole. Mm-hmm. My question to you is do you think that there are some more opportunities to put Bryce under center, or did you think that he's primarily going to be working from shotgun and pistol for the most of his career?
I think the only way you do that, and I'm sure this will be illustrated if you show some more plays, his drop back, in order for him to operate under center, if you're going to use him on a, say, 5-step drop, there would have to be some adjustments to the way he drops back. Like his hitch would have to get wider.
Yes.
Because like if you notice Breeze's hitch was extremely wide, and he would be, in his stand. I'll tell you somebody else, because I've often talked about, PJ Walker is not this man's comp when it comes to quarterback, situational play and process and things like that.
But the build is the same.
But yes, the build, PJ is his comp of how he's going to look over time. Like this guy ain't going to play at 185, 190 his whole career. He's going to grow and probably play at 200, 204, something like that at some, probably 2 or 3 years in the league, bearing that he lasts that long, which I think he will. But what PJ shows is similar to what Breeze shows. Like PJ's drop back is so quick that he'd be so far back before the play a lot of times could even develop at the line of scrimmage to where he had more time to operate. If you notice what Bryce does, Bryce learned this from Aaron Rodgers. You see Deshaun Watson do the same thing. It's not necessarily like a wide stance when he's dropping back.
No, it's more like a back pedal.
Like a back pedal, yeah. And so
we see it right here. He just kind of shuffles backward, almost like he's walking backward.
Yep. And I think in order for you to be able to get him under center more, with there being more of an opportunity for blitzes and edge pressure in the NFL, and then the speed of the NFL being about 10% more quicker even than in the SEC, then you would indeed have to put him in a position where he improves on that drop back some.
Yeah. It is something that I've noticed as well, is that he does have that sort of back pedal in his drop. And I also noticed that there's sometimes where I don't feel like his back foot is firmly planted on the ground when he's throwing the football. And to me, that's a good thing and a bad thing, because if you want to knock Bryce for his arm talent compared to CJ, that's fine. But it's also a good thing because I think that he can still clean up his footwork mechanics a little bit more and get even more power and even more drive into his throws. That's an area that I think that he can still grow and still get better at.
And Cody, I gotta be honest with you, man. Like,
Yeah.
arm strength to me is probably the most overrated trait for a quarterback. That was a dangerous throw, by the way.
It was. That was almost pitch. You can see where he was trying to go. Again, does a good job of escaping pressure. And yeah, he's just, and again, maybe this is an arm talent throw. Maybe if he had a little more zip, he could put that ball in there. But to me, that's when you have to be careful and not play superhero ball, because Bryce knows that a lot of times he can make those throws, but you just have to take care of the football.
That is one of those things like, okay, 3rd and 13, I'm trying to make a play. Right. Rewind back to that one just for a second.
Sure. So
3rd and 13, I'm trying to make some sort of, magical play happen, to put us in a position to score, and I understand the mindset that exists, but in the NFL, not against Miami, but in the NFL, that's a turnover, right?
Yeah,
and
for sure.
And that's what you don't want to do. You don't want to hurt your team in that way. And so the thing is, though, is this. That's the drawback of, like, going after playmakers. Like in the NFL, I'll tell you this, because you saw him improve this. Last year, Bryce only threw 5 interceptions compared to 7 the year before. But he had a higher probability of turnover percentage based on a PFF grade than what he had last year. So there could have been more opportunities, like you saw right there, where there could have been a turnover. Right. The thing is like in the NFL, here's one thing I'm prepared for if we do draft this guy. He's going to throw a lot of picks in the beginning. Like, he definitely going to throw some picks because the playmaker's pedigree is taking chances. You know what I'm saying? When there seems to be nothing, when the play, breaks down and you're operating outside of structure. But eventually, once the speed catches up in the NFL, then he'll be fine. Just like I believe the same thing about CJ. But carry on.
Yeah, and I also think that that's probably going to be a problem with both of them. Like, they're going to have to work through those rookie growing pains no matter what. And especially when you're young and, we've just put so many new playmakers on this team, he's going to have to really know how to calm down and take care of the football. So I would urge that every fan be lenient on both of these guys when they're young in their career, kind of making some mistakes. But here he is moving outside the pocket. And again, he does have enough mobility to pick up that first down. And again, that's very Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Aaron Rodgers-esque, right? You're not going to call designed quarterback runs with Bryce Young, but you don't need to, because he's got enough mobility to keep the chains moving.
Absolutely. And the thing is, Cody, is like with him, like here's one thing I'll tell you. See, now a hit like that, let me be honest with you, those kind of hits scare me.
Yeah.
Those are the scary kind of hits. Now, there was really nothing that could be done about a hit like this, but I've seen that somewhere before. And the guy that I've seen that before was wearing a Miami jersey, and he got flung to the ground and was holding his hands up like this. Now, I'm not picking on him because it was a scary situation. But that's what, when people talk about Bryce's size, this right here is what they're terrified of. Look how this, boom. Now.
Yeah. And his legs almost got mangled up too.
Yes. You fling him around like that hard enough, he bumps his head on the ground. It don't take much. Now, not for nothing, that could happen to anybody, but the probability of a guy like Haloti Ngata, or excuse me, not Haloti Ngata, but Vita Vea, who he'll be playing against twice a year, or
Cam Jordan,
these guys that he'll be playing against twice a year.
Grady Jarrett,
These guys fling him around like that, and you're looking at a similar situation, with head trauma. So,
and just Chris Sims made a good point too, and a lot of people kind of make fun of Chris Sims, but he's been right on quarterbacks a lot. And he's like, even the small hits, they look bigger with Bryce because he is smaller. It's like, if Cam Newton got tackled to the ground, it's like, all right, Cam is big and strong. He's going to be okay and bounce back up. But man, when you have a 280+ pound guy running straight into a guy that's 100 pounds less than him, just the sheer impact. Hey, he might bounce right back up like a pogo stick. But dude, they look bigger, and everybody is going to they're going to flinch every time he does take some of those bigger hits.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he does a really good job of getting the ball out of his hand. He knows when pressure is coming, and that's one of his biggest assets. He has a spider sense. He knows when the ball needs to be out of his hands. And if he doesn't have somewhere to go, he normally does a really good job of throwing away the football and, living to see another down.
All right. I don't know if they're going to. Okay, yeah. So they're going to show a closer view of this. I mean, just look. I want you to see how crazy this is right here.
Yeah.
Like, he still gets pummeled. Rewind that back for a second.
Yep.
He gets pummeled on this throw. Pause it right here. You got one edge defender coming, a linebacker blitzing, and one that's spying. 3 guys are going to be in his vicinity at one time, and he still delivers this. It's not just the fact that he delivers this throw. It's where he places the ball and putting it only where his guy could catch it. Go ahead and hit play.
Yeah.
Pressure, pressure, pressure. I got linebacker and 2 edges coming my way. And I throw the ball, knowing that I'm going to take a hit, and I put it low enough and off enough to where that DB, or let's see what we're looking at. Is that that's a linebacker. That's on that. That's a linebacker covering that guy, what looks like a Z receiver. And he puts it only where that guy can catch it. And that ball placement is just it's next level.
Just to play devil's advocate a little bit here, do you think in the NFL that maybe this safety might have a chance to close that ground and get to that ball before his receiver gets it?
No.
I mean, he does have, the ball gets to him real quick.
And see that, and because that's the thing, Cody, like, look, yes, the NFL is faster, but we're talking 10 to 15% at max. It's not, I mean, you're not increasing the game speed that tremendously. Now, if you want to argue because of how the hashes are set up in the NFL on the interior, the hashes are closer, the play is more condensed.
Right.
That's where arm strength, like, I'm going to tell you, that's where CJ is going to get the nod when they're doing the evaluations and they're looking like, okay, what does he offer versus what CJ offers? When those hashes are more condensed and I got to throw from one side of the hash to the opposite hash, it's a further drive in the NFL than it is in college. We've seen CJ do that on an extremely high level and be spot on accurate. But how often are those plays called? It's not. It's in the confine of an offense. You might have 3 or 4 of those in a game.
Yeah. But it is nice knowing that you do have the talent to make those throws. And I also think that when you have a quarterback who is on rhythm and on timing with his receivers around him, the quarterback has a unique understanding of when to get the ball out as soon as the receiver is coming out of his break. And you see, I can rewind just a little bit here. I watch the receiver. As soon as he stops, like, he's stopping to come back to the football right now, and Bryce is already throwing. That's the type of stuff that you want, because he's on rhythm and he's on time. Whenever you're hesitating and you don't know what you're looking at and you're just trying to make a play, like that was early Sam Darnold, right?
Yes.
Just being terrified, trying to make sure you have enough time, and then he just ends up throwing an interception. But Bryce is always on time, and I think that's why he's able to make these plays so routine and so consistently.
And see, that's where the edge is, Cody. The problem, okay, a lot of people don't see this, and this has been my biggest argument. We'll keep going, and then we can decipher that part after.
But and at any point in time, if you want me to rewind something, we can do that too. But go ahead.
Go back to that play one more time,
okay?
Just so we can highlight something that you mentioned.
This one right here.
This one right here, especially when they show so that's the look of it. This is not necessarily an off script play. What this is me having to roll outside because of the breakdown in protection, but that receiver, that curl route was already called. Simple 10-yard curl, so that ball's coming out before he even turns around. That kind of one that shows 2 things. Number 1, you have continuity with your receiving core, and 2, anticipation is ridiculous because so many quarterbacks would be afraid to make that throw. But keep going.
Yeah, and it's also not it's not over dramatic to say that he has the best processing ability probably out of every quarterback to come through the draft in the past 7 or 8 years. Like, he's that good for what he lacks in size.
Yeah,
his IQ and his ability to understand what he's seeing
Yes.
is truly what makes him,
Yes.
I believe, that generational kind of prospect. I think I've told you this before, John. I hate it when all these quarterbacks inevitably get compared to Drew Brees and Russell Wilson just because they're short. So it's like, okay, we're going to compare the short guys to the short guys. To me, Bryce Young actually earns the Drew Brees comparison, because that's what Drew, he was so good at dicing us up, is that as soon as he would hit on that 3-step drop, plant and throw, he would know how to get the ball out literally the moment that his receiver was breaking to get into the fullness of his route. So to me, I actually do like that Drew Brees comparison for Bryce, and I think that he's a lot more mobile than Drew ever was.
Right. And then I also want to highlight, obviously you're seeing a lot of, short, intermediate, routes that they run, just kind of dumping off to the receivers, letting them do a lot of the work. But see, there's so go back to this one right here, because that's a good example of what RPO will look like with Frank Reich. Boom, little RPO, boom, there we go.
Yep. And then
I'm going to tell you, there's another quarterback currently on our roster that can do that with precision. And, I saw there was some conversation starting to bubble up about him this week. That is the difference between these two guys, though, is that Matt Corral, unfortunately for him, didn't get an opportunity to show if he can operate within the confines of an offense that doesn't rely on the RPO to create movement from linebackers and safeties pre-snap. Because once the RPO happens, it was either one of two options for Matt. It was, I'm going to pick you apart when you move and use, opportunities within the zones, and, whether it's a zone defense, or if I, if it's a man coverage and I go RPO and it's just, me on, it's running back, linebacker on running back, spy quarterback on me, then I'm going to go to whichever read is there that looks to be the most open, which is usually my first read. And you would see a breakdown in his play. The problem is that when you're playing in college and you operate that kind of offense at a high level, you're facing defenses that can't respond to that, because they don't have the personnel to do so at a high level. And in the NFL, that changes. So to Matt Corral's credit, we haven't had a chance to see him develop where he doesn't have to lean on the option of the RPO to be able to operate within the confines of an offense. But this right here is a prime example of what it's going to look like with Frank Reich, with whoever they draft. But go ahead and run this one.
Yeah, and you see, look, I mean, this is so simple for Bryce. All he has to do is look and go, man, there's no safeties over the top.
Right. That's a hat on a hat. This is man.
That's easy money. And look, we just signed Hayden Hurst. It would be very easy if you've got like a Hayden Hurst type prospect on the team. You fake that, and then boom, it's instant, man. He knows that he's got his guy, and he puts it right where it needs to be. He makes it look easy, probably easier than it is, but his pre-snap recognition is one of his biggest assets. And when he sees no safeties over the top, man, good luck. Especially if you get him like some legitimate X receivers that can make separation and compete one-on-one. Yeah, he's going to hit those in stride.
And see, this is a look that he's going to see a lot in college as well, which is where you can hit guys operating in space, a too high shell. So you'll see a ton of that at the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. And another benefit is that they gave him so much control over the line of scrimmage at Alabama. And that is one area that I do put Bryce ahead of CJ, is just how much control Bill O'Brien gave him over that offensive line to change his protections and, really just be in control of everything happening.
And, the interesting thing about this, okay, rewind this play really quick. Go back to when that formation was created, because this is what, now you could say that this was Bill O'Brien situation or whatever like that, but pause right there. Look out, these DBs are playing 10 yards off of these receivers. That shows me two things. Number one, you have a strong running game. That's the first thing. Number two, though, is that you have a quarterback that can operate like if they're playing tighter man covers, then obviously you're afraid that your DBs will get cooked by these receivers, which they would have. Jamison Williams, like he had some guys, John Mechie. So there was definitely some guys to be afraid of. but it also shows you that you're trying to react to what this kid does, and you're changing your game plan because you just don't know what he's going to do and how operational he can be within his offense. And that's what we're seeing here. That's why they were getting smoked, because they weren't playing within their game plan. They switched everything up when they realized this little kid, like, wait a minute, like this dude is carving us up. Like, we got to respond. How do we respond?
Yeah.
We create more zone opportunities. And then guess what he's going to do? Pick you apart in zone as well, because he processes so well. Carry on.
Yeah. And again, this X receiver, he's running the go route. So he knows that it's going to carry the DB upfield. And Bryce instantly knows that he's going to have this guy open on the dig.
Yep.
Great touch, great timing. That's how you move the sticks, man. 1st and 10. That's nice stuff. And remember, this is his first game in Alabama. The first time he's ever started, and he's out there looking like a veteran.
Crazy.
Does a good job. And see, this is another benefit, is that even though he's a shorter quarterback, he does such a good job targeting the middle of the field. You know, whenever they want to get someone open, like directly in front of him, he doesn't have a hard time hitting those guys. And normally shorter quarterbacks do, but that's not a problem for Bryce.
Rewind for a second. Yep. Actually, you can wait a minute. Let me see what he does here. Okay, no, that's a good right there. That play that you just saw, like, rewind that running play that you just saw. Right here. That play right there tells me, like I said, a lot of times you can tell the moves. Like, I was probably about 70-30 on what I believed about Bryce. But when I really got to thinking about, and I watched a lot of this stuff that you're watching right now, and I haven't said this publicly, but I'll say it now. When they grabbed Miles Sanders, that told me, without even having to tell me, oh, yeah, they're drafting Bryce. Why? Because a guy like Deontay Foreman is going to have touches. He's going to have to be able to operate under center to be able to run that offense, efficiently, and for him to feel like he's actually being productive. There's some guys that's like, okay, if I'm not getting enough touches, if I'm not operating how I operate to be successful, then of course I'm not going to be able to, give you the kind of production that I can give you. When they grab Miles understands, like, look, just like people that play with Lamar Jackson, it's not going to be conventional. It's going to look unconventional. I may not have, 1,000-yard season or whatever. It may be sporadic. It may be, but I got to be able to operate as best I can outside of the normal structure of a, power I or just a, standard I formation offense. And so to me, that's why you grab a guy like that. And then Chuba can be your power guy.
Yeah. Miles Sanders is definitely a different asset than the Panthers have had at the running back position. And maybe you can compare him to Christian McCaffrey, but he's definitely going to be to the benefit of a player like, I think, Bryce and CJ. Here we have a big 3rd and 8 right here. And again, he gets his tight end right here. He knows he's going to settle down right across the middle of the field. And he just waits for the chaos to move behind him and then hits him. I mean, he's really good on 3rd downs.
Very good.
Yeah, that's been one of his biggest assets.
And this is all pre-snap recognition too. Sorry, I didn't mean to mute myself. When I'm talking about pre-snap recognition, it's like it's seconds. I've got 2 options. If those 2 guys on the edge blitz, I'm going one direction. If they don't blitz, then I'm going another. But right here, this was pretty simple. The two edges, they kind of played like they were going to blitz. They came and he made them pay for it.
Yeah. He does a great job too. I mean, it throws with a great touch, puts it right where the receiver can make a play.
That was outside.
Yeah, it sure was. I noticed that too.
Seeing him throw the 81 like that looks kind of prophetic. Him and Hayden Hurst. I mean, everything is out of shotgun. It's crazy.
Yeah, now that was a drop. He should have caught that one. But that's it. Again, that he's so fleet-footed, and he's quick enough, is that he can get back. He might not have the longest drop like we were talking about, but he can get back far enough. If he knows that he's got one of these fake plays like that, and the receiver has to catch that. That was on time, right where it needed to be.
Yeah.
And just receiver didn't come down with the ball. Oh, now that one just kind of overshot a little bit.
Yeah, he got away from him. Yeah,
it definitely got away from him. I don't. Would you say that ball sailed, or let's? And also, what I try to do is look at his footwork.
That's
and
a good base.
It is, but I don't know, man. And maybe I'm nitpicking. You tell me what you think. Mm-hmm. I do think that sometimes, and I said this earlier, that back foot comes up a little bit too early for me. And I feel like if he would just plant and just whip that ball out, he could put a little more drive on that ball than he does and get sometimes. Now, this also wasn't open, so it's not like really anything was going to happen unless it was a jump ball catch. But I don't know. I feel like when it does sail, it is tied to his footwork.
Oh, absolutely. And that's with any guy. But what I will say is that when you look at – rewind back to that really quick.
Yep.
When you watch his feet on that play and you see his back foot jump up, this is one of the things that you look at on tape that can be a little bit scary.
You mean the throw? You want me to go back to the throw?
Yeah, go back to the throw where you were showing me his feet.
Yep.
All right, so it's going to be
1, 2.
This one right here. So he's got a good base. One of the things that he does, and I noticed this when he threw a rocket in the SEC championship this same year, and hit, I think it was Mechie and Stroud or okay, we see him right there. So look at those two guys. Those two guys are blitz, and he's got his base. He's kind of in a good base to be able to throw this ball. But then when you hit play, you'll notice I'm kind of hop stepping just a tad just to be able to drive the ball far enough and get it over these guys that are in front of me. That is going to be a concern, but also that's also where you got to rely on protection. You know, that's where you invest in protection, you know, to be able to, you know, help to offset that.
And I said this on Twitter a couple of days ago, and everybody thought that I was like trying to take a shot at Bryce. But one of the things I said is that one of the benefits of drafting a 5'10", 195-pound quarterback is that, man, as an organization, it puts the onus on you to make sure that you are continuously building your offensive line, that you have an offensive line that can pass protect and protect that quarterback to mitigate the damage that he's going to be taking over the course of his career. Now, yes, you would want to do that with absolutely any quarterback, but, you know, you're going to tell me that a billionaire like David Tepper doesn't know how to protect his investments? You know, I'm pretty sure he does.
Well, not for nothing, man. This is why I believe, and pause this for 1 second because I really want to get to because this is a great opportunity, great play that we're going to see right here. But you talking about that was perfect. So I mentioned Patrick Mahomes. What we saw Mahomes do this year without, you know, Tyreek, without a lot of the weapons that he's been accustomed to, you know, sure, they brought in Juju and they brought in, you know, MVS and, you know, obviously he still has Kelsey, but like he doesn't have those perimeter weapons like he had at that one point. And they, you know, found Isaiah Pacheco or whatever, but he still was able to get it done. But what they invested in the offseason primarily was the protection, you know, and we'll see how how much that changes now that they lost Orlando Brown to the Bengals. But what you gain from having a guy like this is that you don't necessarily have to bring in or pay big name wide receivers or draft big name wide receivers because this guy's going to elevate them and you can place the focus more on protection. And I think that's where with grabbing either one of these guys, to be honest with you, I think that you have that opportunity to do that because I believe that these guys, and he showed you, like the one thing I can say, like, I know that CJ didn't have Jackson Smith-Njigba this year. You know, he lost Chris Olave after last year going into this year. But what he did against Georgia showed you that, like, hey, it doesn't have to all be like, I don't have to have all Marvin Harrison. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can do it. And Bryce showed you the same thing. He lost John Mechie. He lost, you know, Jameson Williams. He didn't have a receiver that's going to go in the top 3 rounds, maybe even, I don't even know that they'll have a receiver drafted this year, you know, that he played with. I mean, because a lot of them were underclassmen, but that just speaks to the kind of, you know, quarterback that he is.
Yeah, and also to piggyback on that comment, if you're putting the onus on offensive line, I have long been a firm believer that you can find some dynamic, incredible talents at the receiver position in the second and third rounds. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they do this all the time.
Oh yeah,
they're the best at it. They don't really use those premium first round picks oftentimes on receivers. And look at how many superstars they've been able to draft in the later rounds. I think Scott Fitter is a good enough GM that he could do that very same thing.
Yeah.
So let's look at this play. Again, I think he's just he does a good job of getting the ball out of his hands. I mean, there was nothing there to be had.
That's probably grounding. That looks like grounding.
Let's see.
Well, he's outside of the box, but okay, yeah, they didn't call it grounding, but
yeah. So again, it just the protection breaks down, and he just gets the. Yeah, I couldn't see how that would be grounding.
I mean, if he doesn't move, I don't know. Maybe they just, he was outside of the tackle box, but like, you could make if you're Miami, that's grounding. If you're Alabama, it's not.
Woo! Now there's a throw. That's probably the throw of the game, John,
that's
right there. Yeah, that's a dot. And again, he's at 3rd and 5. Third down, he's backed up to the goal line. He's throwing this from the end zone. And again, I don't mean to be nitpicky. I do see the same thing here, and I think that's just part of his throwing motion and his footwork. And it is something that he can get better at. But his feet, the distance, I like the distance apart. Foot comes up a little bit early, but it's still he does a good job. And I mean, he knows. I believe this is Jameson Williams right here. He knows. Hey, he's got him. He's got him dead to rights on that post. And yeah, that's a beautiful play.
Yeah,
from Bryce, man.
Did he get caught? No,
sir.
I was gonna say you ain't catching Jameson Williams.
Nah, that's a tutty right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, he knows where he's going with the football. He's got a single high safety up here. Got man on man.
Yeah, that's a house call.
Yeah, easy. And then again, man, if we're projecting into the future, if that's a DJ Chark or a Terrace Marshall Jr., they're burners, man. They can take that to the house. Stretching the field here with these little bubble screen passes. And by the way, those are hard throws.
They are.
People think that, just because you're throwing to the sideline and it's a relatively short throw that it's easy. But especially the bigger arm quarterbacks, like it takes some real timing and technique and footwork to be able to make these little rudimentary plays seem easy.
Yeah.
Oh, a little bit too high. Now let's look at that one. To me, just puts that's a rare time where, and see, there it is again, man. He's got that back heel up. I wish he would just leave his foot planted and drive on that ball, because then I think that the ball doesn't sail on him as much. And I think that ball is at a better spot for that receiver. And again, he still almost made the play. But if he doesn't have to jump out of the building, that's probably a completed pass right there.
Yeah, I agree. And, the thing is, but that's one of those things where, because the protection was breaking down, that's a height thing. I got to push it as far as I can. So I'm kind of having to operate on my tiptoes a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like people, they get really upset when you mention the height, that it could hinder him in any way, because it really didn't do it on film. Every short quarterback, be it Russell Wilson to Drew Brees to Doug Flutie back in the day, they had those moments where their height was just a difficulty for them.
Yeah.
But it's all about developing the techniques necessary to be able to shift your motion ever so slightly to be able to see over the offensive lineman. And Bryce does a really good job at doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, just a little too far out in front of him. Let me see if they. No, I thought they were going to replay that. I mean, it's not a bad throw, John. That throw was not bad at all.
No, it wasn't.
Again, maybe if he takes a little bit of heat off of it, but again, that wasn't a bad throw.
No. I mean, that's one of those ones. I mean, it's just a tad bit overthrown, but
Right.
you know, when you look at okay, so like, see that right there. I mean,
it's a plus and a minus, right? Because it's dangerous, but he still made the play and he threw it with enough velocity that he did get the ball into the hand of his receivers. Maybe if that's in the NFL, maybe that's a batted pass, or maybe it's even intercepted. But I mean, a third down, he got the ball to his guy.
I mean, and see, that's to me, I think that right there, that play is the projection. That's what you look at, because most young quarterbacks, especially ones that are just starting, where is their most difficult space to operate? It's over the middle. It's in the middle of the field. We see that from, you know, one of the things, like, if I could say that there's anything that scares me about CJ Stroud, if I'm gonna look at what Justin Fields has done in the NFL, not in college, but in the NFL, I'm gonna look at how he operates in the middle of the field under pressure and within the confines of an offense. And Bryce's completion percentage and his attempted throws on the middle of the field was the highest in college football. And so that to me is what translates so well. And then too, see, now that look, rewind that real quick.
Yeah.
Now I want you to watch this because I'm gonna ask you a question. Where's Bryce? Do you see him?
No, I sure don't. I sure don't. That man has been eclipsed, John.
Hey, bro, it's scary. It's scary.
That's a lunar eclipse, man. And
yes,
again, that's why I have a hard time telling people, no, don't worry about the size. It's not an issue at all. And listen, Bryce has done everything in his power that a short guy like himself would have to do to mitigate this type of damage. Yeah. But man, you're never going to completely get rid of the danger of being hit by a 350-pound defensive tackle.
No. And that's the thing. Where is Bryce? That if I'm Frank Reich, if I'm anybody else, and look, we're gonna get to see it up close. This scares me to death because I mean, this is one of those. If that's Von Miller, if that's Khalil Mack,
Aaron Donald,
that's you're not getting up from that right away.
Oh, and then he ends up taking a shoulder to the face from his right tackle.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's scary. And look, kudos to Bryce, man. The dude is tough as nails.
He really is.
He jumps back up, man. The only time he's ever been injured in his college career was last year. He was going to the sideline and just kind of fell on his own elbow. That caused him to miss the last half of that game and the next one. But from the pocket, he bounces right back up whenever he gets hit, man. But yeah, and that's such a talking point when you're talking about Bryce and CJ, because it's like, even if you have Bryce evaluated a little bit higher, how much is the gap between those two? And can you get CJ on the level where he's consistently doing more of these things that Bryce did throughout his career, like he did in that Georgia game, and thereby you're not dealing with the constant fear of your smaller quarterback having to get hurt. And I will say this though, a lot of people are like, oh well, Bryce Young, he weighed in at 204, but CJ Stroud, he weighed in at 214 pounds, and that's not a whole lot bigger. And yes, that is true, only a 10-pound difference. But CJ being taller, his body has more real estate for him to be able to put on future mass and muscle in the NFL. Even if Bryce beefs up and bulks up a little bit, he's never going to have the amount of frame and the amount of ability to put on as much muscle as CJ Stroud. And I did hear playing at Ohio State this past season, Stroud would play upward of 220 pounds. So it seemed like he kind of shed some weight going through the draft process here recently.
In service to CJ, because I know we're doing tape on both.
Yeah,
I am going to reserve all of my commentary in terms of, the differences until after the fact. But I will say this. that where's Bryce clip is scary because, like I said, if he gets smoked by Khalil, if he gets smoked by, I mean, granted, how often is he going to see Khalil, playing in the AFC West? But the point is that, you better really, really like hope that, you develop a game plan and an offense if you draft this guy that's going to limit the amount of times he's going to see, big hits, and also, take some of the potential playmaking ability not away from him, but just make him, and not for nothing, I think he kind of showed that this year. Like he didn't get hit nearly as much this year as he did last year. And so, and it actually increased over the course of the season. So that's something to be, to look at as well.
Yeah, and as long as he continues to protect himself to the best of his ability, like, think what you want about Kyler Murray. One of the things that I did like about him coming out of Oklahoma is that he did a good job of avoiding the big hits, like knowing how to fall and knowing how to, essentially let the tackle happen to you. That's a real skill set when you're that size, and that's something that Kyler did well. I feel like Bryce also does that really well. All right, so we're down with our first bit of film, man. That was his first ever start against Miami.
Yeah,
that was very impressive. John, we're gonna stay with these Florida teams, and we're gonna go from his first start to his first on the road game against Florida.
Okay.
Hold on one sec.
Bryce Young off to a red hot start through 4 touchdowns in their opener against Miami, which was the best opening performance by a quarterback in Alabama.
Sorry about that. The hotline going crazy,
You hear what he said right there? Best opening for a quarterback in Alabama history. Interesting.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Considering you're at Alabama and the talent that they've had come through there, that is super impressive, man. All right, so here we go. I had the sound off on the last one so that we could be heard, so I'll put it just a little bit lower. All right, now, what do you think about this, John? Because all the naysayers, now it was a flag. He did end up holding him, but that ball does kind of die on him, don't you think?
Well, yes and no. Because, see, sometimes people will say this about CJ as well, but the reason why I say no, rewind that for a second. The reason why I say no on that is because the way that the receiver is running this route, this is not just a flat-out go. It doesn't appear to be that. It looks to me like he's throwing the ball to lead him away from the safety, which sometimes means that he's going to throw. Look at the angle. Look, the receiver literally had to run sort of a curl style angle. So like what happens is when they throw the ball deep like that, like if it was just a flat out go, I think he hits him in stride easy. But because this guy is closing in on him so much when he releases the ball, I'm throwing it to a place that I can lead the receiver back towards me a bit and away from that safety, so that creates just a small amount of separation. We see that in like, I'll give you an example. There's and I don't know if you have this as tape, but in the college football playoff, when CJ threw a ball like that to, I can't remember which receiver it was or whatever, he done the same thing, and many people looked at it like, oh man, he's throwing, he underthrew him, like way underthrew him. It's like, no, he's leading him. And this is what makes him so accurate, because he's leading him back to him and away from that safety to create separation that's not there. But in this case, it sort of looks like that, but you could make the argument easy that, hey, this was an underthrow.
Yeah, and again, I'm not harping too much on it because at the end of the day, it ended up being a positive play because it drew the flag. And I do like that he's not scared to take shots like that. Normally, when you have a quarterback that doesn't have that type of arm talent, they don't even want to push that ball downfield.
Right.
Jimmy Garoppolo is the quarterback that instantly comes to mind, and that's part of the reason why San Fran kept on trying to upgrade that position. They were good at the intermediate stuff and the 10 to 15 yards, but that offense is also designed to get chunk plays open downfield. And they're not able to capitalize on that. That's why they did draft Trey Lance, and that's not a problem that you're going to have with Bryce Young.
And I'm going to say this, and I know that this probably will put my credibility on the line, but I'm willing to say it. Pause it for a second.
Go for it.
Because I'm a build on something that you just said. They better not. If I'm in that quarterback room, if I'm Brock Purdy, if I'm Trey, I'm training extra. If I'm Brock Purdy, I'm doing. they better not let Sam Darnold start more than 3 games. Because because I'm gonna tell you something. If Sam Darnold starts more than 3 games, he's gonna be the quarterback that Kyle Shanahan's been waiting for.
Oh yeah. Hey, listen, if your credibility is going down, mine is too, John. Because I'm telling you, people are not ready for this Sam Darnold restoration that I think we're getting ready to see, man. And Sam Darnold played his best football down the stretch for the Carolina Panthers, and it's not a coincidence. Yes. That when you finally put protection around him, you finally put weapons around him, you finally give him a coach that's actually going to give him a legitimate chance, that just now we started to see the best of Sam Darnold. Yeah, this might be one heck of a comeback story.
I agree. And the thing is, Cody, is like when you look at him compared to a lot of the guys that are in the league right now, I mean, Bryce is going to walk into the league. CJ is going to walk into the league. Hendon Hooker is going to walk into the league. I think him and Hendon, he'll be the same age as Hendon when he comes into the league because he's only 25. He was the youngest quarterback to ever start in the NFL, like as a rookie. And he's only 25 years old. And it's like, man, him getting with Kyle, but that's a conversation for another day. But yeah,
it is, but that's a good point. He's a 5-year NFL veteran now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's not like he's seeing a bunch of different looks that are foreign to him like a rookie quarterback.
There used to be a time in the NFL where you'd let a guy sit like that and develop, but that is long gone.
Long gone. Especially for the Panthers drafted number 1. We're looking to have one of these young men hit the ground running.
Yeah.
So, now to me, this is the play that in the NFL could easily be intercepted. He's throwing it to the sideline. He's on the near hash. And I don't know, that ball kind of floats on him too. It's a little bit to the right shoulder, on his outside shoulder more than the inside shoulder. Yeah, I didn't love the placement on that ball.
Well, and I got to tell you, rewind this play really quick because we saw this last year with when I say hate, I hate that formation. I cannot stand. The only time I think, especially on a 2nd and 4, we saw Joe Brady call empty set. I don't know how many times. And people like Darius Slay said, well, we were just sitting on top of the routes. Where are you going? Yeah. That's man coverage. Where are you going?
Yeah.
There's not much surprise or not many elements of surprise. And I see the running back there. So maybe I'm sorry, I was mistaken. But like most of the time when you line up 3 wide like this and one on the outside on strong, like that's usually an empty set. But like, the running back's there to block. You're not going to run on that play because, I mean, he'd be swallowed up if you ran. So where are you going?
Yeah. I don't love it either. Yeah, that's one of my least favorite plays that I've seen so far, both offensively and from Bryce. Just not.
Oh, here it is. Okay, play. Yeah, that was the play. 3rd and 9. Now he makes something happen, but I hate empty set, man. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, on a 3rd and 9, it's very obvious that you're throwing when you have these empty sets like that. And I don't know how often Frank Reich and Thomas Brown are going to be doing these empty set kind of things.
Well, see, and the truth is that
big hit too. Shoulder to the sternum. Let's look at that one more time.
While you're rewinding that, in the NFL, you're not going to have that much operation time, because like I said, the hashes are more condensed. So the plays, everything's going to be so much more condensed. That's why the speed improves so much. 1 is the training, but 2 is because of how much more condensed, the players are, opposite of each other and the confines of space that you're playing in. And so you're not going to have that same kind of space to operate like that. But a gamer's a gamer. So, you still make things happen.
Oh, so it fumbles the ball. It kind of wobbles on him. And he just takes care of it. Lives to see another down on 1st down. Mm-hmm. Bad snap, probably.
Yeah. And the thing is, I got to be honest with you, Cody. I love watching film like this, but I also have to watch it with the understanding like these guys aren't perfect, man. Like they're, you're looking for, the traits that transition, to the next level. But like, just like, because I know that some people are like, it's like, and I hate that it has to be, a binary conversation like this, like where it's like, I don't like CJ because I like Bryce. And some people take it wrong, like where they're like, oh, you're crapping on Bryce because you like CJ. And it's like, nah, man, like, we're just looking at things that transition. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. And again, I think you have an example here of he will take his time to make sure that he knows what he's seeing. They do the hard count right here. Gets his running back in motion. second and goal, gets it out to him.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you're right. If this is a Miles Sanders, like that's a hey, go make a play in space, and get the ball into the end zone, and he does a real good job of that.
We'll see a lot of plays like that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Trips right.
Yep, trips right. We got it back in the backfield.
Yeah, I just on a play like that, I think, when you call plays, like a lot of Bryce Young's like smaller intermediate routes, I want to see how this play develops. Hit play. Because, okay, so I see why this is happening. Because there's so much that could be gained. Like you see Mechie kind of, breaking containment to the outside where he's probably going to set up for a potential sluggo, which is like a slant and go route. But like the reason why it can't happen is because the protection here was awful. Like the protection for this team, his rookie year, his first start year, I should say, was not good at all.
I mean, the ball was just snapped, and you have that end coming off the edge, just working the left tackle.
Yeah,
and he still gets the ball out. Again, another inaccurate ball to the sideline. Now it was a flag right there.
I will say this though, that very thing that you just saw and him operating outside. Now that I don't know if that was a drop. Rewind that one back.
Yeah, I wanted to see that too. To me, it looked like that could have been a little bit behind him.
Yeah.
I also like to look at the footwork.
So it's just slant.
Yeah, just routines. Yeah, just a little bit behind him. If that ball is a little bit out in front,
that might be a house call.
Yeah, that might be a house call. And again, those plays don't worry me because I've seen him make this throw a million times.
Yeah.
So you're going to have the one-off every now and again where you just.
And not for nothing, like I like Mechie, but Mechie's more your corner route, your go route. He ain't your slant guy. Jameson's your slant guy. So and I ain't trying to give him a pass because you're right. It was kind of behind him, but still.
Yeah.
It's good play recognition, dumping off to the
also imagine Adam Thielen. Him and Adam Thielen would be an incredible connection on those slant routes in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
So again, they're doing a lot of bubble screens, trying to stretch the sideline. Wide open.
That's Billingsley. That's the tight end.
And he knows it too, man. I think they're going to show this play. They'll show it again. So, your tight end. Is that tight end?
Wait, no, that's Billingsley's the receiver. He's a slot receiver. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so he leaks out into the open. And as soon as this guy carries him, look, there's all kind of chaos. There's a dude on the ground over here. That's how you know something went wrong.
Yeah.
But he knows that his guy is coming open. And he just puts that ball out in front of him and lets him go and
that's under pressure. And not for nothing, that's the reason why his name is here and Levis's is not. What I will say is that I do think that with a guy like Levis, pause it for a second. I think that, unfortunately, here's what happens with narratives, man. Like when a narrative's created about you, it almost seems like, people assume that you can't overcome it, right? Rich Gannon won a MVP in his 10th, 11th season with the Raiders, right? In the NFL. Brad Johnson from my hometown won a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Bucks. Narratives. I mean, Matt Stafford played years in Detroit, and many would say he just didn't have a roster around him. Buddy, they had some players. They had some pieces. It just the coaching and pulling everything together cohesively is what didn't work. And honestly, Matt Stafford didn't play great in a lot of those potential, games that would lead them to the playoffs. And then, of course, they had Favre and Rodgers in the division for a long time. But the point I'm making is this. I don't think that the narrative that Will Levis can't be successful is necessarily a true one. It's just going to probably take more structure for him to be more successful than it would for a guy like this. And I think that's the difference between him and CJ, and not for nothing, Richardson too.
You know what? I was thinking about this last night, and I know this is off subject, but you brought it up. With Will Levis, I kind of feel like most people aren't even knocking the football aspect of him. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of stuff you want to see better on film. But when it comes to Will Levis, I feel like I'm hearing a lot of reports, and in his interviews, there's like an arrogance that comes off about him. And I feel like a lot of the people that are downing him, it's not necessarily even for football reasons. He can't help it, but he kind of has the face and the build of like a guy that would be stuffing a nerd in a locker in high school. You know, like it kind of comes off a little bit meatheadish from time to time, and eating a banana with the peel still on it
is the nastiest thing on earth. That's worse than the mayonnaise. Go ahead.
They're both bad. How about that, man? I would never. But all right, yeah. So back to Bryce here. And again, there's not really much to be had there. He's trying to make a play.
No, and I agree. To me, that looked like miscommunication.
Yeah, I agree on the type of route.
There's Mechie.
Yeah,
I hope he gets better.
Where did Mechie get drafted?
Last year to Houston. He ended up getting cancer.
Oh, that's right. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh, that looked like a horse collar.
That was 100% a horse collar.
What do you think about that one, John?
Miscommunication. And the reason I say that is because you could see where the receiver was anticipating him throwing him open left side, and he was, because you see right there, like, okay, he stopped. Now, that could be on the receiver because of play recognition. Maybe Bryce was anticipating him continuing the route and hitting him in the back of the end zone. That's why that ball ends up a little higher. I mean, the pressure doesn't help, but to me, you could probably put that one, and then this is not me being, a Bryce truther here, but this looks like something you could probably put a little bit more on the receiver than you do, because anytime you see a receiver pause, it's basically the receiver telling you, I have no idea which route you're. And you notice right there, he stopped thinking that he was going to put it on his back shoulder, which he was, but I think he was anticipating him moving up a little bit further in the end zone than where he was.
Yeah. I mean, I wish that was a curl route to the side. To me, that would have been that would have been no one around to intercept that play.
And you know what? To be honest with you, Cody, like, that's something that you'll come to expect with a lot of young. I mean, this was his first, second game starting, but they don't get a ton of time to train together like that. You know what I'm saying? And with guys, when you get to the NFL, it's just all ball. So like the moment that he gets drafted and gets on that airplane, whether it's him or CJ or whomever, and they get on that airplane to Charlotte, they're probably, my guess is that a guy like him and CJ, and I would hope any of these guys would immediately link up with Thielen, Chark, Shy, and all these other guys, and get somewhere in the offseason and start training together.
Okay, so let's go back and rewind on this play. And no, I agree with you. I think that Bryce and CJ are both the type of guys that are going to call up the receivers as soon as they can and get some throwing sessions to get ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
So again, this is a lot from Bryce. Protection is bad. His guard is literally on the ground, for goodness sake. Gets a hold of him, grabs him by the jersey, and he just dirts the ball. Again, he knows when to live and fight for another play and not focus too much on
Cody,
it.
This is one of the problems that I have. When
Was
you
that
go
grounding?
back to this play, it might have been. Or even, I don't know. I don't know what they call it right there. I don't know how much I like, because to me, this is too long developing. This is on Bill O'Brien, because scroll back just a little bit.
Yeah, it was an intentional rounding.
It was?
Yep.
Oh, wow. See, I don't, and this is what's going to be different when he gets to the next level. And this is stuff that improved when he, next year with Florida, because if you remember, this is where when he went, Steve Smith said something that, they would give him, play install on Sunday. And he would go back on Monday. This is after, after a few starts and, getting himself acclimated or whatever like that. And he would go in and say, hey, these are some things that I don't like. This is some stuff that I feel like wouldn't work against this coming team or whatever like that. And you build that trust by just showing up to meetings and voicing those opinions. Now, Bill O'Brien, because he's coached under, now, who knows if Bill O'Brien would have listened to this, and we know this from the DeAndre Hopkins situation. Bill O'Brien, if he's the head coach, if he's Saban, he's probably telling him, kid, get out of here. But because he's being, because he's working for Saban, it's probably like, okay, well, let's listen to him to see what he has to say.
Yeah.
And this is one of those plays that I would imagine, okay, if my protection is breaking down, why on the earth are we calling play action out of a shotgun set?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what are we doing? And this is one of those places he probably like, look, coach, this ain't working.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't working. And again, he tries to get the ball out of his hand. It ends up being a penalty. But no, you're right. I don't love that play design. All right, protection's good.
And see, look, that should have been a catch right there.
Yeah, that was a drop to me. That was easily a drop. He trusted, and when he does have enough time to throw, he doesn't get happy feet. For someone that is as nimble and as agile as him, and who does scramble around like he does, he really doesn't. Like, I felt like even Russell Wilson, a lot of times in his career, he would scramble when there was no need to even be scrambling.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really feel like I see that from Bryce a lot.
Another drop.
Yeah, I also kind of feel like that should have been caught.
Yeah, that's right on your hands.
Yeah, you have to catch that.
Yep.
Have to catch that. Big time 3rd and 16 as well.
That was awful.
That was ugly right there.
Yeah, that was well behind him.
Yeah, that's a burn the film type play.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, that's a big drop. That was a nice ball by Bryce, keeping his eyes downfield, moving to the right. Again, he's got that Patrick Mahomes in him, man. That ability to align your feet right before the throw.
You and I both are Clemson fans, but even as being Clemson fans, have you? I mean, look at that placement, man.
You couldn't hand it to him better.
Couldn't hand it to him better. Walk it to him. Have you? I don't know that I've and we noticed the change this year. It was much different this year than last year, but they lost a lot in the draft. I know they lost. There was one big left tackle that they lost. Was it Neal? Didn't he was with Bama?
Yeah, Evan Neal.
Yep. Neal went to the Giants. They lost Deontay to us. They lost quite a few other guys. I don't know that I've ever seen an Alabama team that lacked protection like this one does. I mean, in the two, oh my gosh, the two tapes that we've watched, man. I mean, he's under pressure like almost every snap.
Yeah, he really is. I mean, that's we were having this discussion yesterday on the Friday Free for All. It's like how can you really blame a quarterback for their protection, right? And we'll get into this when we talk about Stroud. Mm-hmm. Stroud was the 155th most pressured quarterback in all of college football. Wow. That means their line was pretty darn good. Mm-hmm. Like, they were doing a good job pass protecting, and therefore Stroud didn't have to deal with a lot of that pressure.
Right.
Whereas, and when he was under pressure, he was still pretty good as a passer. Whereas, so it's hard to necessarily blame him for not being under pressure enough. Whereas with Bryce, as you mentioned, yeah, it seems like every other play, his offensive linemen are just getting pushed back, or either that or the play, guys aren't getting open quick enough, and it's just giving this O-line too much time to falter. And that's what they end up doing. So he does a good job stepping up into the pocket. He tries to roll out again, but it just takes a big hit. And again,
go ahead.
Can you see Bryce? Can you see him anywhere?
Nope. Where's Bryce?
Man, been eclipsed again. He's a moon out there being so.
What I will say though, and this is not an excuse, obviously, but the transition for receivers, when you talked about people getting open, when you have a guy that has such a quick release, and sometimes his the ball gets to you a lot quicker, gets to places a lot quicker, and maybe they're not used to a guy that throws with that much anticipation, things like that, and you're changing quarterbacks like sometimes year to year. You know what I'm saying? Because they went from Tua to Mac to because Mechie played for. Gosh, I mean, I think Jameson and Mechie played for all three of those guys, because I think Jameson was a freshman with Tua. He was a sophomore with Mac because Mac only started 1 year, and then he was a junior with Bryce. So that is an adjustment period, and that's not something practice can simulate. Only real game snaps can, put you in a situation to build that kind of chemistry.
Yeah. Here's another example of that, him doing an exceptional job reading the middle of the field. And look, I mean, he drops. Let me rewind that one more time. So I think we got a 3-step drop here.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3. And then as soon as he hits that 3rd step, the ball's coming out of his hands.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see right where he's going. He doesn't have a problem seeing, or at least not on this play. Maybe it's because the timing of him and his receivers is so down pat that he just knows where his guy is going to be. But that's a big time chain mover on 2nd and 15.
Mm-hmm.
That's
See that?
good,
Okay. Yeah. And that right there is an illustration of why rewind that one real quick. That's why the height doesn't concern me. Look how this pocket is collapsing. Now, obviously, he could step up in that situation if it was pressure from the outside, but inside pressure is what the NFL is predicated on. And so you got this guy. Look, everything, the pocket's clouding around him. I'm going to stand in like a big boy and deliver a throw.
Yeah. Again, across the middle, too. Yep. And that's what's so impressive. And that's what he has in his wheelhouse. If you look at his heat map, he targets the middle of the field consistently and accurately.
Yes.
All right, we got trips right. Ooh.
I hate that play.
Yeah, not great. 2nd and 12. 7:17 left in the 3rd. Oh, let's look at that one more time.
You know what I haven't noticed? They don't do a lot of and this will be different when he comes, to Carolina, or whether it's him or CJ. I don't see a lot of mesh concepts, and you'll see that a ton under Frank Reich, in Frank Reich's offense. And that could make him even better, especially his midfield accuracy is what's going to be that's where you're going to really see him thrive with mesh, especially when those two receivers cross and he gets that opportunity to hit a guy in stride.
Oh, yeah, and that's why Lincoln Riley had such success with Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield, too, man. Those mesh concepts, it just makes everything easy because they're going to pick up linebackers. And, that was a big reason for Kyler Murray's success. And I do agree. I would love to see some more of that for Bryce.
But see, I'm going to tell you, Cody, that's why, pause for 1 second. That's the reason when Frank Reich talked about running RPO, they're going to use mesh. They're going to use an air raid style, kind of system. That's why it would not shock me in the slightest that they'll pull the trigger on Anthony Richardson. It would not. If they draft Anthony Richardson on draft night, I would not be shocked. Even with all that we're watching with these two guys that we're paying the most attention to, if his name is the name on the card, I would not be shocked at all.
Yeah, and hey, let me know in the comments down below. To this point, I haven't, had made any plans to do an Anthony Richardson film session, but hey, I'm a man of the people. So fans, if you want some Anthony Richardson film, let me know. Put it in the comments, and maybe we can make that happen. I said this about Anthony Richardson, John. I would be upset for maybe the first 30 minutes, but I get over it real quick. Because what I've said is, if you believe in this coaching staff to get the most out of Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, I don't know why you shouldn't also believe that they could do the same thing for Anthony Richardson.
Yes,
the talent is there. He definitely needs a coat of polish, no doubt. But I mean, when you look at Josh Allen and Justin Herbert, both of those guys were the 3rd guys drafted in their respective drafts that clearly had the highest upside. And even though they weren't the first quarterback taken, you can make the argument that both of those guys were one of, if not the best quarterbacks of their respective drafts. So,
and I mean, man, these guys, the one thing I'll say about Reich and Jim Caldwell and, all the Thomas Brown, they've seen it done at a high level with every type of guy, right? Caldwell has seen, Peyton Manning, but Frank Reich won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles, but he was also on an MVP tear with Carson Wentz. Yeah. He took Carson Wentz and was given, and let me say this too, because a lot of people will say like, oh, Frank Reich's type of quarterback is the 6'4", blah, blah, blah. Which one of those quarterbacks did Frank Reich draft?
Yeah, not one of them.
Not one.
And he's also since been on record and said that he had a very high grade on Russell Wilson when he was coming out too. So I also think that it's overblown.
Yeah.
I don't think that he's insistent upon having some prototype built quarterback.
Right. The one
I
thing
will
I'll
say this, John. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So the one thing I'll say on Richardson though is this. The point I was going to make is if they do draft him, Cody, and we can talk about this a little bit, after we get done. But if they do draft him, then clearly there's something that they see in him that projects to a point where he'll be because if you move up with all the information that you have on these two quarterbacks that the field says you should draft, right? That the consensus says you should draft, and you go the other way. I said this on my show, and I'm going to eventually do a video on this. It's a career killer. Like, we're talking about Scott Fitterer being done as a GM and not getting a chance anymore. Frank Reich not being able to coach anymore because you literally passed on two potential generational talents for something that could be generational. But I tell you what, you better know that guy can be that. And if they do draft him, then they're basically telling you, like, look, he's going to be better than all the guys that are comp to him, whether it's Cam, Josh Allen, or any of these other big quarterbacks, all of them combined, because the physical attributes show and his arm talent shows that he could be.
Yeah. David Tepper gave his front office and his coaching staff the right to pick whichever quarterback
they
felt was the best, carte blanche.
Yeah.
Who, go through a thorough evaluation process and pick your guy. And get this correct. I mean, this is going to be the litmus test that decides what Scott Fitterer and Frank Reich are going to be with the Carolina Panthers, no doubt. I will say this, John, going back to the film, in the NFL, this is intercepted. This play right here on 2nd and 12. He just doesn't see the linebacker going into his throwing lane. And look, you see number one. He's like, that's me. I should have caught that.
Oh yeah, that's a pick.
Yeah, that's a pick, and potentially even to the house in the NFL.
The one thing I will say is that you don't see as much of that on the film, and this is where I think that the Bryce and CJ comparison is so close. When people say that they're very close as prospects, CJ showed you that he struggled under pressure most of the year. Most people would say, like, oh no, he didn't. No, go look at the film and go break down each snap. Under pressure, he did struggle mightily at times, but he didn't against Georgia. Why? Because of progression. Because he grew as a player. He had more time to study.
Healthier,
he had more time to prepare. Bryce, you don't a play like that, what you just saw, you don't see that on Bryce's tape in 2022.
Right. And that is a good point. We're looking at his 2021 film. We're going to do the same thing for CJ Stroud as well.
Right.
So I mean, again, this is his third ever start for Alabama.
Yeah.
So he definitely got a lot better in his time with Nick Saban and the Tide.
But the one thing I will say, Cody, and we can say this to the people that are listening in the chat that may agree, disagree, and feel indifferent or whatever, is regardless of whether we draft your guy or not, please, oh please, don't be in everybody's chat jumping out the window when this guy or CJ or whomever throws 3 or 4 picks in a game, because it's going to take time for these guys to adjust to their new offense.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh, that was a big time drop. Big time drop.
Run that one back again.
Yeah, for sure. And listen, one of the things that I love about, so for example, Alabama, they have these stripes in the middle of their helmet, and that makes it very easy to know that Bryce is going through his progressions because you can tell when he's looking at a different receiver depending on where that stripe is aimed and lined up. So again, is looking originally for the tight end right here, I believe number 81, trying to get at the bottom, and then he has a guy coming wide open, and he just drops it, man. He wants that one back.
Oh yeah, that's costing you. So that's Bolden too, who showed up huge this year.
Yeah. 3rd and 8, a lot of pressure, steps up.
Still
good job of still delivers, keeps the chains moving. That's a great play from Bryce.
I mean, buddy, his offensive line is getting smoked.
Yeah, they're getting work
on the edges and on the inside.
And it's not like Florida had some crazy defense either.
Right.
Rolls out.
Yeah, just throw it away. Nothing
Yep.
there. Smart
Nothing
play.
there. Very smart.
Look at there.
Oh.
Another drop. And he's Mechie throwing his hands up. But that was one of the only times where you saw his running back. Like, rewind that play just a little bit. Because on a 3rd and 7, this is one of the only times. Now, this was what does, I'm going to be honest with you, this scares me a little bit about Miles Sanders and Chuba as well. I think Chuba will grow because of just being in the NFL, being around it, seeing things. And
Deuce Staley coaching him now.
Yeah. A lot of NFL offenses aren't that much different from each other. What's different is the terminology. So, like, they're going to have an adjustment period with the terminology, of Frank Reich and Thomas Brown. But in a situation like this is what you were talking about when he's protected. Watch this running back pick up this blitz from the linebacker, and then he delivers a ball that should have been caught.
Yeah.
Pick up that blitz. Edge pressure is not there. They're coming, but you give me just enough time, I'm delivering.
Yeah. That shouldn't have been a catch. And again, there wasn't a lot of separation from the receiver on that.
No.
But it's not like you're going to have a lot of, that's going to be a similar window in the NFL because they play some real tight coverage. And again, that's the free safety right there. So he can't put it too far out in front of him or else you give this guy a chance to intercept the ball.
Absolutely. But that's a high level. That's an NFL throw.
Yeah.
Good protection.
Yeah, just pick up the first.
Get down, son.
Yeah, 100%. Hey, that man's gonna have to learn how to slide, slippity slide. That's definitely gonna have to be something he's gonna get better at in the NFL. Like right now, slide. Get down right now. You've already picked up the first down. Boom.
Yep. Don't be a hero.
Yeah, you don't even need. Look, I appreciate you being a baller, trying to get that extra yardage. He's got that dog in him. But man, just protect yourself, man.
Yeah, but listen, you a Cocker Spaniel out here playing with pits. Like,
yeah, 100%.
Go get the mail and run back in the house.
Yeah, 1,000%. 2nd and 11, 28-23. So they're trying to put this ball game away right now. 3rd and 3.
Oh my God.
That was beautiful.
That was dirty.
That was beautiful.
Run that back.
That was beautiful, man. And
I
he
saw
does
a guy
that. He does that.
There was a guy wearing number 4 in an orange jersey that did that for us for years.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that was very Deshaun-esque. But man, his ability and he just makes a minor adjustment. He'll go full speed to make you think that he's running to the edge. Nah, son. Nah, come on. That was nice, man. That was really nice.
That's
okay. We're gonna get the back angle. Yeah, go ahead. But I know what you're gonna say.
Okay, very so slightly rewind this one, and then because when they show that angle right there, because this is when you hear the Curry and the Mahomes comparisons and stuff like this. So first, I'm gonna evade this pressure. But not only am I going to throw this ball, but I'm going to lead this guy away from that linebacker so he doesn't have to run into him or stand still. I'm going to give him room to be able to operate to whatever side, or operate away from this linebacker. That right there, let me tell you, there's maybe 2 or 3 guys on the planet that can do that. He's one of them.
I mean, he turns him around and gets him moving in the right direction where there's nobody really even able to stop him. I mean, he was able to get his hands on him, but hey, a big, strong tight end, he fought for some extra yardage. That's good stuff right there, man.
Yeah. I'm kind of glad this one is over. I'm ready to get to CJ because people think I'm just like the biggest. Some people on my channel think I'm a CJ like hater. But,
hey, it's the season, man. Everybody's dug in their trenches and they're ready to declare their victory. So that ball was batted. I don't know if he did he get it down? I don't know. Was that a touchdown?
That might have been a touchdown.
All right, man. So that is it for Bryce Young. And again, listen, I understand why everybody loves Bryce. I love him too, man.
Yeah.
There are plays like that one. It was actually kind of fitting that was the last play that we ended on with Bryce. Because his special stuff, his ability to make people miss, that is unquestionably his biggest asset.
Yeah.
And he does that so well at such a high level. But you already mentioned it, John. It's time to talk about the other quarterback. Everybody, yeah. I mean, listen, I love me some CJ Stroud. Every time I watch this film, I feel like I get a man crush even harder, man. I'm really enjoying my my CJ Stroud film every time I watch him. We're gonna take a look against Minnesota.
Young Colgate.
Coleridge, I believe.
Coleridge.
Yeah, Coleridge. I actually kind of like that, man.
I love his story.
Oh, I love his story too.
And his we'll get to that at the end. I'll talk about that at the end.
2nd and 8. 4-man rush.
Watching CJ Stroud play football is like poetry in motion. Like it, I mean, he's so smooth and fluid. His throwing motion is fluid. His footwork is impeccable at times. Like, I mean, look at that. That is textbook.
Yep. Steps up into the pocket. Oh, that should have had that too.
That should have been caught. The one thing I'll say about CJ that separates him from every quarterback that you see in this draft specifically is that very rarely does he throw a ball that is uncatchable. Like everything that he throws is usually within radius to catch.
And especially on those downfield throws as well. Downfield accuracy is something that the Panthers have just been sorely missing since the prime days of Cam Newton. It's refreshing to even think that we could draft a quarterback with his type of downfield talent. But again, under the confines of his offense, like I said, he was the 155th most pressured quarterback last year. So he wasn't pressured very much. He has a good offensive line at Ohio State. He checks up into the pocket, takes about 3 hitches, and just puts the ball right where it needs to be. And again, catch that ball, man. I know he has to lay out a little bit for it, but if it hits you on the hands, you got to come down with that.
Rewind that back for a second. His feet and how wide he keeps his base when he's moving within the pocket is a thing of beauty. Look at this.
Yeah.
I'm going to step up. I've still got my wide stance, so I know where the ball's going. Boom, boom, boom. Let it rip.
And it's the perfect, like his feet, the spacing apart is about shoulder length apart. From one shoulder to one shoulder, and he's consistent with that.
Yeah, his feet remind me of Luck. Like Luck's footwork was just ridiculous, and he has very similar feet to Andrew Luck.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so 1st and 10. Now, another thing to look at, and I've been saying this too, and I guess this is kind of where you would say Bryce is a little bit ahead of CJ in terms of how they ran the offense. Ohio State was notorious. I mean, you see they have 7 seconds on the play clock here. Normally in college football, they run a lot of hurry up. They get the ball out of their hands fast. But the Ohio State offense, they will use every single second on that play clock so the coaches can read the defense and make last-minute adjustments and call audibles. So maybe you could be a little bit fearful that the speed of the NFL game is something that CJ Stroud is going to have to acclimate to because of that facet of the Ohio State offense. But again, he also does a good job of reading the defense and knowing where he's going with the football pre and post snap.
And see, okay, so this is going to be paused for a second.
Yeah.
Because what you just said right there is going to be the biggest question mark that everybody's going to have about CJ going into this. Is one thing I noticed right here, right off the bat, was them sending the tight end in motion. And that basically just gives you a barometer of what the defense is going to do. If they're in man, then obviously somebody's going to follow them. They could be in kind of a pre-blitz look where somebody will still follow and then they'll blitz instead of dropping off into coverage or vice versa. The thing is that the play call is falling, like you said, because they are controlling the flow of the offense. So he's looking to the sideline for what they want him to do.
Yes.
And the question is going to be when he goes to the next level is like, okay, how much of this, it's possible that his processing ability could be on the level of Bryce's, dare I say, potentially better. The question is, and the big unknown is that we don't know.
Right.
And the only way that we're going to find that out, it won't be us that finds that out.
Right.
What'll happen is in Camp Confidential or whatever, or the post-draft video that they do, when they sit down in the war room, this will be a question that they answer. If they draft him, they're going to say, okay, we're convinced that his Ryan Day-led offense, yeah, he was able to operate that, very well, but we can still give him more responsibility based on what we asked him in the film room, in the interview process,
Yes.
and how he was able to translate what he was doing on the field and why he was doing it. If he just regurgitates points of like, hey, I was doing what coach said right here, or, coach this, but there's no like hearing what he has to say in this opportunity, then we're not even going to have this conversation. He's a Texan because I'm telling you, go ahead.
Well, one of the things, you hear a lot of rumors that Bryce Young has been exceptional throughout the interview processes. And I'm hearing the same thing about CJ Stroud.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it doesn't get said enough about him, but apparently he always tests and interviews really well. And I feel like I even said this in relation to Hendon Hooker and even Matt Corral, that you can't put so much of the blame of the specific style of offense onto that quarterback, because they're just running the offense that they're being asked to run. So just because you're in a more rudimentary style of offense, or just because you're doing something that you won't be doing a lot of in the NFL, it doesn't mean that you're incapable of doing it. And that's when your intelligence, your IQ, your EQ, all of these things come into play of how fast can you learn and pick up new information and incorporate that into your gameplay. And from everything I've heard, again, I don't know anything, I'm just someone on the internet, but from everything I've heard, CJ Stroud is exceptionally smart, and he does a really good job at learning and picking up new information. So even though it is a point of concern, the whole Ohio State offense thing, it doesn't drive me crazy like it does some people.
No, but I will tell you this, and I've heard you say this, and I'm gonna back you up on it. We can continue watching film while I say this. But when you watch, like, not that throw, obviously, but there's other throws that this guy makes that you said something, and I saw that you did catch some heat for it on Twitter. And I've seen you catch heat for it, even with guys in your chat.
Yeah,
you said that if he figures it out on the level from a processing perspective as a Joe Burrow did, that he'll be better. I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I think that he has a better arm. I think that his field vision, his accuracy is better. And he could be, we're talking about, like I said, if those questions that we all have, those boxes are checked, within 2 to 3 years, he's top 5. If he can develop into that.
And look, another thing just about him being taller is that it takes far less for him to get much further back into his drop.
Mm-hmm.
So the distance that he's able to get is a benefit to him, because he's able to look at the defense and see if he needs to step up or get outside the pocket. And again, he's also very good underneath. I want to go back for a bit. I don't want it to seem like we just overlook some misses here, because he did miss on these 2 throws.
Oh yeah,
he puts it out, and again, he just puts it out a little bit too far ahead of him, and it was a flag on the play. But yeah, again, he does have some misses, and also let's remember, this is 2021 film. This is near the start of his 2021 season, so you can definitely see how much he has evolved and grown over the course of his career at Ohio State.
Absolutely, because do you know what his completion percentage was in 2021, Cody?
Off the top of my, wasn't it like in the high 60s?
It was over 70%.
Yeah, man, that's big time, and you can't take that away from him too. Everybody wants to say, "Oh, it was the receivers being open. Oh, it was the offensive line." Look, the receivers and the offensive line were what they were. At the end of the day, he has to put the ball where it's supposed to be, and he was able to do that 100% consistently.
And not for nothing, let me just say this real quick. Pause the game for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Let me say this. to the people, because I'm not obviously where I lean, but for the people that are like, oh, the Georgia game was like, he's got to be able to play that way all the time. Go back and watch every NFL game last year and tell me if you saw a game where a quarterback had to play and evade pressure like that every single game. It doesn't happen on the next level either.
Right.
There's going to be some games in the NFL where it's going to look like he's playing against Minnesota, with the kind of talent that they have and the kind of talent that he has. Like, look, these players don't grow on trees. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the NFL is a hard business, but at the same time, it's like, man, building out rosters is tough. Like, look at Tampa lost a lot. New Orleans lost a lot. Like, Atlanta has been struggling. Atlanta still, like, they had one of the best offenses in history with Kyle Shanahan, but they still haven't been able to find a defense.
Yeah,
really ever.
It's hard to win NFL football games, man. It truly is, and you have to have a little luck. You have to have a little magic on your side to get everything moving in the right way and in the right direction. So again, we have that stripe in the middle of the helmet for Ohio State. We see him looking off to the right. It looks like maybe he's going to go to this curl route to the sideline, but he comes off of that. He sees, and by the way, look, this is the tight end that's going to catch the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And you notice he's not looking at that tight end.
Mm-mm.
He's looking at all this open space that he has out to the left side of the field. And as soon as he sees that space, he's like, yep, that's where my tight end's going. And look at where he puts the ball, man. Gets it right to him. Just money, man. And I think that is what I would say that he's probably the best at in this entire class as a thrower. His anticipation on routes coming open, it really is incredible, man. I mean, you were even seeing it when he was throwing at the combine. When he throws the ball, it looks like it's going to be an incompletion.
Yeah.
But he throws it to a perfect spot, like he has some kind of telepathic connection with his receivers, man. It really is special. 2nd and 10. Oh, kind of fumbled the ball a little bit. And see, this has been one of the criticisms as well, is that there have been times where he tends to be a little bit inaccurate on the run, like rolling out to his side. That just kind of gets a little bit ahead of the running back right here.
Yeah.
And it just kind of settles it a little.
That also, but look what was happening when that happened. That's also a snapshot of why the criticisms have come to him about his operation under pressure.
Right. Yeah, you have 3 linemen chasing after him. Yeah, it just needs to settle down and put that ball right where it needs to be. 3rd and 10 at the 17-yard line.
Yeah, I mean, see, now that's okay. Pause that real quick. To me, I'm gonna chuck this play up to young quarterback. They flank their running back. I mean, look how wide that running back is. College it's just insane how wide they play. But they flank the running back outright. Now, I got opportunities, especially watch when I think it's Chris Olave crosses over on this slant behind the referee. You got just enough of a small window. This is one of the knocks on CJ. Sometimes when the initial read isn't there, the processing to get to the next read is not as quick. So see, look, Olave's sitting right down in the middle of that zone, and you got him dead to right. But instead, you take the check down, and that right there is going to be like on the 3rd and 10. I realize it's 3rd and 10, but that's going to get you closer to a decision to be made to whether go for it on 4th down, or Chris Olave gets an opportunity to fight for a 1st down. But this underneath stuff, I'm going to chuck that up to him being a young quarterback in the situation, because I saw improvement from that this year than what you see right here. Yeah.
And by the way, I'm going to hammer home my original point. Look how much time is left on the clock. 2 seconds.
Yeah.
They're using every bit of time available to them. But I do like his movement from inside the pocket, right? 1, 2, 3 on a 3-step drop, moves to the right a little bit, plants his feet, and throws. And again, he kind of missed that layup.
Oh my gosh! I mean, Olave was a first down potential touchdown opportunity.
It was
100%.
100%. 1st and 10.
Cody, let me tell you. Pause that for a second, because I don't know. Like I would have to watch more of this tape from before and then see how that changes year over year. But here's the fear that I have with drafting a guy. We talked about the fear with, Bryce Young getting smoked. The fear that I have with drafting a guy like CJ in a situation like that is, okay, you had that underneath route was his initial read. The Chris Olave would have been the second read, even though he was in the area, and he still chose to go with that first read as opposed to the other. When you're a guy like Justin Fields, and this is where I think that if they, for instance, like we talked about Anthony Richardson, and you draft Richardson, you have other things that he can use until he can get better at the processing. Like with Justin, you had his legs. I mean, he rushed for what? More rush yards than any guy. I mean, or whatever, some crazy stat. You know what I'm saying? I think it was like 1,300 yards or something crazy like that. But like, he can use that to compensate for making up for the processing and learning the offense and things like that. You're not getting that with CJ. With CJ, it's like if he struggles with that early, man, it's going to be a long road to development because he doesn't have that ability to be able to escape and evade like that. And accuracy, unfortunately, won't help you when it comes to play recognition and process. But we have seen a vast improvement. I just wonder how much of a drop-off will happen on the next level while the adjustment period is taking place. And what do you think about that?
No, that's a fantastic point. When you're a pure pocket passer, the margin of error is much lower when you're coming into the NFL. Because at least if you're a Cam Newton, a Justin Fields, a Josh Allen, you have that ability to be a threat with your legs. And, even if you struggle with some things passing, you're able to fall back on your athleticism. When you don't have that, you have to be much further along as a passer coming into the NFL if you're going to be successful. I think for both Bryce or CJ, it's going to be very important that our coaching staff realizes that, understands that, and kind of eases them in to their offensive system and what they're going to want these guys to do on the next level.
Yeah.
So here he is rolling to his right again. Just kind of gets away from him. 2nd down. Yeah, they're really trying to stretch the defense to the sideline so they can get some of these guys open upfield. I don't believe they had Marvin Harrison in 2021 either.
They did, but he wasn't that big of a factor.
Oh, okay.
They had him. He's out there.
Okay.
I mean, because you had, Chris Olave, you had Jackson. I mean, I can't remember which game it was. Jackson Smith and Jigba went off for like 238 yards. Like he went nuts.
Yeah.
In the same season. But no, Marvin Harrison's on there's Jackson Smith and Chris Olave there. Yeah. But like Marvin, he's probably in rotation, but he's on the roster.
Yeah. Now, he is in control of the offense to a degree. You saw him telling his running back where he needs to be and where he needs to set up. 1st and 10 here, rolling out to his right. And again, another one of those inaccurate throws. He just kind of dirts it, rolling out to his right. Gets back in the pocket, makes some space.
That's right nice. There.
That's nice.
And that's what I was talking about. Remember, so rewind this. They may show the okay, so they didn't. Look where he's at. Opposite hash. Yep. So I'm opposite hash, and I'm going to drive that ball all the way to the overside to the opposite side of the field, essentially throwing kind of throwing across my body, but he's set. But just watch that. I mean, watch how beautiful this ball is.
And also look at the spacing of his feet, and look how his toes are facing his receiver, and he just puts beautiful touch and air on the ball. And see, this is one of his strengths. There was no opportunity for that defender to get their hand on the ball. Literally none. Literally none.
Yeah, very layered throw.
Yeah, he has a big arm. And see, he's got some athleticism, man. It's not something. It's not something that he did a lot. And I've had a lot of Ohio State fans tell me that they really don't like to utilize the quarterback run. Justin Fields was able to do it, but even his was a lot of improvisational type stuff. It's not something that the Ohio State offense really focuses on doing, is having a lot of runs from your quarterback. But they didn't ask him to do it a lot, but he does have that capability, man. It's not that high-end athleticism, but again, it's like the type of athleticism on the level of like a Joe Burrow or a Patrick Mahomes. You know, they're not going to burn you, but they have enough strength and athleticism to be able to make some extra plays.
Right.
Nice touch. Nice timing.
Run that one back real quick.
Yep. Clean pocket, steps up.
Good.
Boom. That's beautiful. That's a money play right there.
You know, this is the one thing I will say, though, man, that you see more often in Ohio State, man. And this is one of those things like, look, the Ohio State quarterback thing is a real thing. Why? Because of what exists. Look at what you just saw there, man. I mean, that was you don't see these kind of open windows in the SEC as much. You just don't, man. And I mean, that's something that you have to acknowledge. But at the same time, you also have to say, like, at some point, somebody's going to break that mold of the Ohio State quarterback. Why not him? Why not him?
Why not him? He has everything, every trait necessary in order to do so. Yeah, that was a big-time touchdown. And again, that's one area where I do have him ahead of Bryce is the downfield accuracy and the ability to push the ball. If I'm going to throw a deep out from the opposite hash, I would trust CJ's arm talent a little more in those types of situations. Again, kind of fumbles the ball a little bit.
Yeah, that was a bad snap.
It was a bad snap, but it does get the ball to the sideline. 3rd and 5. Ooh, he took it to the house.
Some wheels.
And that counts as a touchdown, man. That's a touchdown pass for CJ Stroud.
Like a 60-yard touchdown.
Yeah, but look, this is nice though, man, because look, he has a guy coming free from the edge, and look, he gets that ball up and over the hand. Like as he's throwing, he knows that this guy is going to get his hand up, and he still gets it over him and into the hand of his running back. Again, you talked about Miles Sanders. That's a Miles Sanders type of play right there. 1st and 10. Fix the handoff. Nice. Does a good job getting into a lobby on that curl route. And again, man, he has the receivers that are going to be able to make the magic. That's another touchdown pass from CJ Stroud.
Pause that.
Yep.
While it's on that. Okay. Dwayne Haskins debut, 22 of 30.
R.I.P. Yep.
Yeah. Rest in peace. 5 touchdowns and an interception. I think Justin Fields' stat line. Justin Fields' stat line didn't even look that good, but he's still, 5
touchdowns and no interceptions. Yeah.
CJ Stroud, goodness. But I'll say this with Haskins, I think talent wasn't the issue with Dwayne. I think that Dwayne had so much stuff going on off the field. And he was, and this is one of those things that, so when I'm looking at Bryce and I'm looking at CJ, and I do wonder this about Anthony because I don't know, and this kind of worries me for Anthony Richardson as well, because one of the things that he mentioned, and I know I'm kind of going off the beaten path for a second, but one of the things that he mentioned, actually, let's get through the tape and then we'll talk about this at the end. I'm sorry.
No, you're good, man. I love the way your brain thinks about all these different types of quarterback things.
Go ahead.
So he fakes the handoff, and again, he knows where he's going with the football. He's kind of falling away and puts the ball 30 yards downfield. Yeah, that's a nice play, man. And also, you know what? I'm not too big to admit my former mistakes, John. In that draft class, I thought Dwayne Haskins was going to be better than Kyler Murray. I liked his game. I thought Dwayne Haskins was going to be the better of the two, but it just ended up not working out that way, man. But
I, like you, thought Dwayne Haskins was going to be excellent. I remember seeing Dwayne Haskins' first game and saying, like, oh, he's next.
Yeah.
And he's finally going to break that mold. I remember saying that on Facebook. And again, I think Dwayne Haskins had a level of, like, the league. I never will forget that quote coming into the league. The league messed up. Like, how did the league mess up? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, that it wasn't the league's fault that you got drafted under Daniel Jones. You know, like what did the league have to do with that? But I think that there was a lot of stuff, like I said, not when I say off-field stuff, I'm not talking about things that he was doing that to me, that just looked like a blown, like that was just
it was also offsides too.
Yeah.
So that he knew he had a free play. He was just trying to get the ball up.
But with Dwayne, it was more of a situation where I think that his family might have been leaning on him too much to provide too much, and that took his focus off ball.
Yeah.
So
that's a story as old as time, man. These guys get into the NFL, they're finally millionaires. Then family members you haven't seen and spoke to since you were 10 years old coming out of the woodwork. But
well, and a lot of it with him was his immediate family. You know, like I remember seeing, like, when they had the as a matter of fact, when they did his draft party, I remember seeing, like, T-shirts, that they had made, and it was like the Haskins group or something like that.
Yeah.
And, like, the thing is like, in order for this to work from a marketing perspective, like, I have to be, fantastic on the field.
The man. Yeah.
And you could just see that there was a lot of, like, maturity, things. Like, I remember the selfie on the sideline after the first win, in Washington and all that kind of stuff. And it was just like, if he had a chance to really, like, just stop and think about what opportunity was in front of him and just to kind of grow into it. And it sounds like that's what he was doing at the point when, the tragedy struck or whatever. But I do believe that he probably would have developed into a solid quarterback for sure.
Yeah, I remember a lot of people were mad at the Giants when they passed on him. Yeah, that was a heck of a time, man. But like we say, R.I.P. to Dwayne.
Yeah, man.
And both of these guys were big time high school quarterbacks. Bryce Young went to Mater Dei, and C.J. Stroud went to Rancho Cucamonga High School. Almost 50 touchdowns and almost 4,000 passing yards. Yeah, he was a climber. He didn't have a lot of offers until his final season. Then Georgia came along, Ohio State, Michigan.
Why?
So, it was partly because of what he was able to do his final year. I mean, you saw those numbers, right? Almost 50 touchdowns. And another fun fact, both C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young, they've been competing with one another since high school. They've been a part of the Elite 11 quarterback competitions with Trent Dilfer.
Yeah.
They do those all the time. CJ actually won that Elite 11 competition that both him and Bryce were a part of. So they've both been big time quarterbacks since high school, and they're friends. They're training together for the NFL right now.
I saw that. Yeah, that's pretty dope.
That is really cool that they're friends and that they've been doing this that long with one another.
I just, I have high hopes for these two guys in this draft. Like, I hope that these guys, to me, the amount of quarterback talent that exists in this draft, it feels to me like this may end up being the 2012 or like the 83, like the Elway, Marino, and Jim Kelly, and who else was in that draft? There was another name. Oh, I think Favre was in that draft, but he was
but wasn't it the guy from Buffalo?
Yeah, Jim Kelly.
Yeah, you said that. Yeah,
Marino, Jim Kelly, and Elway were in that draft. And then, in the 2012 draft, you had Luck, RG3, Tannehill, Wilson. And I know that all of these guys, RG3, to me, injuries kind of, tore that thing apart. Because I always think about, like, man, can you imagine if Philly had if Washington had an offense that they built around RG3 like Philly built around Jalen? Like, it would have been ridiculous.
Yeah, and they had Kyle Shanahan too.
Yeah.
So it's like they had enough to really make that successful. That last pass, he kind of put the ball a little bit behind number 5 Would have liked to have seen that out in front of him a little bit more. But again, he sees he doesn't have anything open downfield. He does a good job at getting to his check down. A little bit toesy from inside the pocket. He kind of, but no heel clicks, man. The separation between his feet is nice. His footwork is very, very consistent.
Yeah.
Going to every level of the field. And catch that ball, right? Come on. Let me see that one more time. I like to see if those were on the receiver or if that was on the quarterback.
That might have been a little bit on the receiver, but that was also on the defender, because if you watch as the receiver's going out of that break into the slant, or you could call it a dig, sort of, he kind of gets bumped off the route, boom, and then yeah.
I still catch that ball.
I agree.
Yep, catch that ball. 3rd and 13. Nice.
And the yak from these guys was crazy.
It was. And you also see a good drive of the football, man. Watch how fast that ball. So he sees this guy open right here and just throws a bullet.
That's Jackson Smith.
Yep, that sure is, man. Jackson Smith and Jigba went crazy last year. And look, these throws are just impressive because the field in college football is longer than in the NFL. So this is, these throws from the opposite hash to the sideline, that's longer than what he's going to have to do on an NFL field.
They are, but the only thing, like I said, the one thing that I worry about in the beginning, it would not surprise me if CJ Stroud goes on to have an Elway type of career, right? Where you see an immense amount of talent, but even though he has the Elway Manning type of career, he'll also have the potential Manning start while he's adjusting to the speed of the NFL. And he might throw a crazy amount of interceptions in the beginning. It's just a matter of being, but I will say this, hearing Frank Reich talk about how, and I love the unconventional approach of, David Tepper and Frank and all the, what we're seeing now different from before. I mean, he said it. Andy Dalton's going to play some games this year. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion unless he just absolutely lights it up in camp. I don't see a way that CJ is the day one starter. Like either one of these guys. I think we would like to think that, but I really believe they brought in Andy because they really intend to develop a quarterback, like for real develop.
I don't know what to think about that, man, because part of me says, I mean, I could easily see that happening. Andy Dalton's been in the league since 2011 or 12 or something like that. He's played a lot of football. He's made it to the playoffs before.
3 times in a row.
Yeah. I would just like to hope that unlike the fraudulent quarterback competition last year between Baker and Sam, where everybody and their mama knew that Baker Mayfield was going to be given the starting job, I hope that whoever we draft, be it Bryce or CJ, they do give them the legitimate chance to compete and start this job, So under center.
We'll talk about that after this. Go ahead.
Yeah. Under center. This is one of the things that that CJ does a lot more on field is that he does play from under center more. So in that aspect, Frank Reich is probably going to consider that as well. The fact that he has been under center a lot more than Bryce. And you mentioned that earlier.
Now, this right here, this formation, that's a Sunday formation. Look how everything's bunched together. And look how, you see how tight that was, and he operated pretty quickly. Rewind that one again.
Sure.
That's what it's going to look like on Sunday. It's not going to be spread out as far as you see. It's going to be, tight 3 bunch formation. But this is how it's going to look most plays because you can't spread out that wide because of the hashes. And you see how he was able to process pretty quickly and get to his read.
Yeah.
Drop.
And he knows that he has Olave coming right across the middle underneath and just gets it to him and lets him make magic.
Use a pick off of that ref. I'll do that.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was really no defender on Olave. Like these guys don't know what like number 37, they don't know what the heck they're doing. So that was a layup, honestly. I would have liked to have seen how he worked that if Olave was covered.
Yeah, I see that. That's one of the main criticisms is that most of the receivers are not covered very well.
No.
Up there in the Big Ten, Ohio State, they've got great receivers. Oh man, ball gets tipped. All right, they're going for it on 4th and goal. And see, that's nice, man. Just put it right out in front of him. Let him go and get the ball.
Yeah. Oh, that was Garrett Wilson.
Yep, that sure was.
My gosh, that don't make no sense, Cody. Garrett let's rattle off the names. Garrett Wilson, because you asked me, was Marvin Harrison on this team? Yes, he's on the sideline. Marvin Harrison, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, JSN.
Yeah, man. Dude, you can make the argument that they're the modern day wide receiver U. For a time, it was our Clemson Tigers, but I feel like now you have to give it up. Ohio State, man, they're putting out some incredible receiver talents, and Marvin Harrison next year, he's going to be considered in the same tier as a Jamar Chase coming out of LSU.
Yeah,
great route run by Wilson as well, and he just puts it up, man. Let your guy go make a play on the ball, and he does that a lot. He does that so many times on his film. 3-step drop, boom.
That's Harrison right there.
Yeah.
That wasn't
handoff.
Wasn't him that caught the ball. That was him they showed on the sideline.
I
like how he stepped up right there. That was smooth.
I like his ability. Look, he knows that the edge defender has kind of gotten past his tackle. Steps up into the
ball.
2 hands on the ball. Steps up into the pocket. Look, and he's running forward, and look, just chucks this ball right to the sideline. That's a perfect pass, man. And great job by the receiver. Hey, that's a catch on Sundays.
100%.
He had 2 feet in.
Mm-hmm. That's the rookie of the year.
Yeah. Nice job. Had a ton of open space. Again, man, you can imagine Miles Sanders in that position.
And here's the thing with open space, and you can keep it running. We'll still comment. You can keep it running. The thing is with open space, that's a nice layer throw. Yeah. With open space, you still, even if there's a ghost on you, you still got to be able to put it in a place where the receiver can have momentum and continue to run. So like the accuracy is still there, and it's still, and it may not be anticipation on the level of seeing somebody draped on you and having to throw it to them before the defender reacts, but it's accuracy and ball placement where your guy can still make, adjustments after the catch to be able to, gain more yards. So that, just because you don't see what you see in the SEC up here, there's still a lot to to look at and be desired.
Absolutely. On this play right here, nice little slant to Jackson Smith and Jigba. And again, he plays very well in the confines of the offense, the timing and the rhythm that's required of him. This is another NFL concept, and just beautiful, man, just beautiful. And again, John, so many people are like, oh, the receivers are wide open. They're wide open. Well, yeah, that's not his fault, man. That's not his fault. You have to put the ball where your receiver can make a play on the football. And you just made a great point. There are very few times on film where you see his receivers have to make some crazy adjustment to the football.
Yeah.
He hits them, Stroud hits them in stride, and he puts it out in front of them to the perfect point where they're able to continue to run and get those yards after catch and take it to the house, man. That's good stuff. That's touch, timing, accuracy, and that's ball placement.
And here's the thing, Cody. The thing with him, and I think what happens and what gets lost in the context of this conversation is just how important coaching matters. So, like, when I'm watching a guy like this operate this offense and do as well as he does, I mean, that's a layer throw. That's putting it in position.
Yeah.
He threw the ball in a place where only his receiver, he led the receiver to the route, and finished the route out for the receiver. And there's, like I said, you might not have to see the anticipation, because anticipation would be me throwing a receiver open to the point where I'm throwing the ball before he's even out of his break. So that's one thing that you don't get to see a lot because of how wide open these guys are. But at least he is throwing his guys to a place where it's basically essentially finishing a route for him.
Yeah. So this is where he sees Olave coming out of the route and just puts it up and over and leads it out in front of him and puts him into the end zone. It's good stuff, man.
Yeah, it's textbook.
5-step drop. He knows he has an edge rusher that's probably going to hit him and puts it right into the hands.
Now, rewind this because just like you talked about in the NFL, this is where it could be a problem. Because in a situation like that, push play, look how much space you have up front. That you step up. There's no need to because there may not be a running back in kind of on a wheel, what looks like a potential, what could have developed into a wheel route. There may not be a running back on a wheel like that. So in a situation like that, if you have to work the middle of the field, that's where you'd like to see him step up. Now, in this situation, he didn't have to. But like I said, in the NFL, there may not be that wheel opportunity because your running back may have gotten chipped so bad that he didn't have time to develop it. So this is where you would want to see him work a corner route or work, maybe, something underneath, but just see him step up in a situation like this.
That's a great point, John. And I'm glad that you mentioned it too, because the last CJ Stroud film session that we did, we also had that same criticism that there were times when he had a pocket to step up into and either didn't need to or chose not to or what have you. And there were times when he would almost kind of be falling backward trying to make these throws rather than just manipulating that pocket fully. And again, it's up and down with him because I know that there are times that I have seen him on film stepping up into the pocket. Even today, we watched a couple where he did a good job moving up into the pocket. But then sometimes, and I think maybe this is a falling victim to his own arm talent, he knows that he can make every throw. So, why not make the incredible highlight throw and just get it to him however you can. And he does do a good job at getting it into the hands of his running back. And this ends up being another touchdown for Ohio State.
And I mean, that's one of those things you can't complain about, but like I said, at the next level, that's going to matter because if the interior pressure is being contained and you have the edge pressure coming in that way, he got that ball off. So there really wasn't a need to step up because if he does step up, then, the play breaks down further and you create more you create unnecessary chaos that doesn't need to be there. So one thing I can say is that he does play well within the confine of an offense. It's the off script stuff that I think that makes that's where the separation comes between him and Bryce. But that right there, was this did he catch that ball?
Yeah, he caught this ball. So he knows. So look, as right here at this moment, he knows that he's got a touchdown.
Watch that arm angle.
Yeah, because you see the defender, he's kind of shading more toward the sideline. And look, that ball is out of his hands. And look, he has a rusher coming. He got hit. Let me rewind that one more time. Trips left. Edge defender tries to interfere with him. And that ball is perfect, man.
And I hope they show the vertical angle of that because
I hope so too.
That arm angle was nasty.
I think they will. Yeah, they will.
Here it is. Woo! Look at that.
Or just flips it to him.
Quick release, just layered over the top throw. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. And again, no drop, just snaps the ball. That one wasn't great.
Well, you know what? Depending on your receiver, somebody one of these nimble guys makes a play on that ball.
Yeah, 100%. And also, let me see the ball placement. Yeah, also way too low. Put that ball up a little bit and give your guy a chance. But also, you don't want it to be intercepted too because there's not a lot. There's not a lot of cushion there. There's no real separation right there.
Hey, listen, Hunter Renfrow, that's a touchdown. And you're putting it now. There's things that Chris Olave does that Hunter Renfrow couldn't dream about doing, but vice versa. because that is one of those throws where it's like I'm putting it only where you can catch it when the defender's draping over you. And if you are a guy like a Renfro that can, that's very nimble and can catch, or what's my guy's name that played with Brady for years, Julian Edelman, and people like that, then that's a potential touchdown.
Yeah, easily. Again, I also didn't love the play. Didn't love the play call either. Moving out to his right, eyes downfield, seeing who he has around him, pick up some extra yards, keep the chains moving.
And I ain't getting blasted. I'm just gonna take what I got, what they give me, and then keep going.
Mobile enough. Now that one wasn't great. Let's look at that one more time. So he just sits down in the coverage,
but see, look at Garrett Wilson, and this is, let me tell you what you see right here, and this is why the evaluation process in like when they have the interviews with him in the evaluation process, this is one of those ones that I'm sure they would ask a question. Okay, CJ, we see where your read is immediately. Your read is to this receiver in the middle of the field because we notice that Garrett Wilson kind of stops on the play almost immediately.
Yeah.
What would happen if you did roll out to create more on a, what is this, 1st and 10? And you see that this DB is playing kind of a, once the DB sees the ball out, then he's playing more towards the ball. But you got an opportunity with Garrett Wilson basically running free if you decide to roll out right, like, or, and extend the play. Why didn't you? And depending on how he answers that is going to see how they grade this. Now, you can make an argument that edge right there, I'm pointing at the screen, but you can't see it, but that edge right there could have broke containment and sacked me if I went off script or whatever. But you also got an opportunity to kind of step up a little bit right here and give yourself a little bit more time to see that this guy covering Garrett Wilson in zone coverage is literally standing there with his hands in his pockets. And it's like, yo, that's a house call. Like,
and you know what? Let me add on to that. Give it a pump fake.
Yes, there you go. That's what I'm talking about.
Give it a pump fake.
Yes.
Get this guy to fully commit to that. Boom, pump, stop, come back, and just toss it. Yeah, that's wide open. Look, you see, he was getting ready to put his hand up, call that the mailbox. Hey man, I'm open. Yeah, that's something that I think that we could continue to see more out of.
Right.
And again, that's not even something that he can't be
taught.
Though. Right. It's not. It's not his fault. But you can also see how you can start to add some of these things to his game once he gets more confidence about him. And again, this is 2021 film here, early in his season. But give him a pump fake right there, manipulate that defense even more, and use that arm talent and just burn them.
And see, Cody, this is why, like I said, the interview process is going to be so important because if he's not able to have that control over the offense, if they're going to run this kind of offense, right? Pro style, more traditional West Coast style, a little bit faster, or a little bit longer developing plays in the West Coast. But if they're not going to give him control over this, then he'll just be a more accurate version of what we've seen over the last 4 years with all the other quarterbacks that we've had.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
No doubt.
They got to be able to give him an ability to make that pre-snap recognition. That right there, like, but that's a throw CJ got to make. I'm sure he wants
that. He does. That was a little too far out in front of him. And to me, it's one of those excitement plays. Like, you have him dead to rights. He's wide open.
Mm-hmm.
You get the ball, and you already see that, he's going to be coming free. He throws that ball, and he just puts a little bit too much on it. But again, it's like how we were talking about before, how we saw that almost interception from Bryce, where you saw that early in his career, but you don't really see too much of that stuff now.
And go ahead.
This is another type of play where he hits that 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, and one of the things that you notice, like if you look at his base when he threw that, he was kind of fading backwards a little bit. Like there wasn't, like, look how he threw that ball right there. Front foot planted in the ground, back foot kind of pivots a little bit as you're driving the ball. But if you go back and look at that, you can kind of see that he's kind of leaning backwards as he throws that ball. So it's not going to necessarily have the velocity, or maybe it won't be as accurate. It'll have some velocity, maybe too much. It could lack velocity, but he didn't really step into that throw the way that he normally does.
Yeah. But you see that he doesn't even need to. And that's, those big arm guys, they kind of fall into that trap of their footwork getting a little bit inconsistent because they trust their arm so much, and because not everything has to be perfect for them to get the ball where they're trying to go with it. And this is an example of that. On 3rd and 7, he still gets the ball to his guy, and they keep the chains moving. Fakes the handoff to the sideline. And that's another thing. He really gives his receivers great opportunities for yards after catch plays. So you just can't do it better, man. You cannot do it better than that. Say what you want about the spacing.
Was that a touchdown?
Oh, yeah. 3-step drop. Boom.
Oh, yeah.
That's a touchdown if there ever was one.
Yeah. Bucket.
And again, look at the ball. Let me see if they give us the behind the head view. Yep. So again, you have Wilson 1-on-1, 3-step drop, plants his feet. He does one little hitch at the end of his drop. He hits us up one time, but yeah, he knows that his guy's gonna go. And by the way, I'll try and show this one more time. To me, when I was talking about that back foot with Bryce, with CJ, you notice that the arm throws the ball, then his right foot comes up. And to me, I like that part of his footwork better than Bryce. And I feel like that's something that Bryce can still clean up and get even more arm talent out of his already really nice arm. But yeah, Stroud, that was a great job by him. And again, not to continue to sound like a broken record here, but putting the ball out in front of his guy, look, go get the ball. He doesn't have to come back. He has enough arm talent to put that ball, to drop it out in front of him. That's nice stuff, man. So we're getting to the end of the third quarter here. Well, it's early in the third, but it's almost the end of the video. And it does a good job of just kind of tossing it out. A little bit dangerous, I'm not going to lie, but he made a play. Good. Oh, man, that could have been. Let me see that one.
Like I said, watch it. If you were going to show tape on how to process and step up in the pocket and just like basic quarterback movement 101. This play right here, when you watch how he drops back, steps up, and throws the ball with two hands on the ball the whole time. Like, look at this. This
5-step drop.
Yep. This is, you would show this to anybody looking to play quarterback.
And man, John, look how pretty that ball is. Look at the spiral. Yeah. Like that, to me, that was one of Cam Newton's most underrated attributes. Whenever you saw his highlights, dude, there is no wobble to that football. He is throwing a missile. There's great rotation of the ball. Yeah. And Stroud has that in abundance, man. Out of all the quarterbacks in this year's draft, from Young to Richardson to Levis to Hooker to Bennett to Duggan, this ball that he throws is the best of the class. Now, the defender did a good job getting their hand on the ball.
Well, I mean, nice, he knew where he was going the whole time, and he knew he was beat. So, I mean, that kind of – look at that one.
Oh, he caught that thing too, man. Wow. Let me see if they show the all-22 version of that. So, they're showing Olave. Now, what do you think about the ball placement?
This is what translates. Because I put that on the back, I mean, you say back elbow, but like I put it on when you're covered like that, when that guy's head's turned, you know that he's not going to be able to make a play on the ball. Now, I will say this, Chris Olave and just how talented he is help with that, but you gave your receiver an opportunity to make a play on the ball, even though, I mean, the DB couldn't do nothing. He wasn't going to turn around and pick it off. It would just been an incompletion. But a mixture of his throw and where he led it to, and also Olave's talent gave them that opportunity.
Yeah. And, going back to his ability to evade pressure, again, no one's going to make the argument that Bryce Young on film is better at evading the pressure than CJ Stroud. He had to do it more often. Yeah. So, I mean, in order to compete, he really had to. However, when you go back to that Georgia game, and everybody pinpoints that Georgia game because of his ability to know where the pressure is coming from and the ability to make those slight movements and adjustment inside the pocket while still keeping his eyes upfield. People said that he never did any other time than the Georgia game. That's just false. Now, this play didn't produce any yards, but he sees that he's got a guy coming towards him, gets out of the way, evades another one. So he does have that evasive ability from inside the pocket and scrambling outside the pocket. This is going to be where it's important, and Patrick Mahomes is the best at this on these scramble drills. His receivers are going to have to know, hey, if CJ gets out, you need to be looking, and you're going to have to make some adjustments to your route. He's going to find you if you're open, and he has enough talent to get the ball to you. And that Georgia game showed that ability to do that. And if you comb through the film like we're doing right now, you see snippets of that kind of talent and ability from Stroud to be able to do those types of things.
Yeah.
Good ball placement on the slant, right to the tight end. Tight spiral, man. Right into his hands. And again, that's timing, that's touch, that's accuracy.
So
that's good stuff, man.
It is great stuff. This is the only thing that I would say about a lot of those questions from a prospecting perspective. The prospecting of Bryce is better right now because he was asked to do more at this level. But the projecting is what you're going to do more with CJ because, you notice a lot of his reads were to the first read. A lot of his throws are to the first read. But he's operating within an offense that he's been asked to run. That's not his fault. The question is going to be, okay, which CJ Stroud are we really getting? Because this is one of my arguments for Bryce Young, right? As far as like when all things were equal, I said this on the free for all, right? And I mean, the free for all was probably a harder place to get this kind of point off. So you and I can talk about it now because of just there was so much,
that chaos in there. Yeah.
So, but the question I have is this: is when all things were equal, right? And when I say that, I mean, okay, CJ he didn't have Jackson Smith and Jig, but he did have Marvin Harrison. I don't know, like, actually, I couldn't say that because if he had JSN, you could make a strong argument that they smoked Georgia. So the outcome could have been similar. I do wonder, though, this, because I did see Bryce Young when he had his weapons. I mean, he hung 421 on Georgia in the SEC championship, the most in SEC championship history. But when they played him again in the title game, obviously they beat him like a drum. The thing is, though, is that on the scouting report coming into that game, they did not have on that scouting report. I haven't seen it for myself to know for sure, but I'm pretty sure they didn't have on that scouting report, hey, make sure you look out for this guy's ability to be able to operate, out of structure.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so my question would be is like, okay, if they played Georgia twice, what would be the outcome? One can make an argument, hey, maybe they get JSN back and they smoke them. One could also make the argument that the outcome is just like it was because a great defense like that is going to make adjustments. Yes. And that's what you see. But like I said, if the CJ, if you're convinced when you go into those meetings that the CJ that you saw in the Georgia game is the consistent CJ and that's the real CJ Stroud, this is an easy decision. It's him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a dude, I do not envy that front office, John. I tell you, man, because I can see why people are so fervently in one camp or another. If you fall in love with that arm talent of Stroud and the ball placement and the ability, like you said, to project him into the NFL and say, okay, I have seen him display these talents and traits on film. Let me get him into an NFL strength and conditioning system. Let me get coaches around him. Let me continue to build upon him like other quarterbacks have been built upon before. and you see it. He has it all. But the real question is, like, does Bryce Young have too many traits that you just can't ever teach a quarterback? Like, you either have that kind of processing and mental ability upstairs, or you don't. And that's not to say that Stroud can't do those types of things, but Bryce, he really is special doing those types of things. His ability to know what he's looking at pre and post snap, the ability to make magic. It's something that you saw so much on his film. And you're right, you're doing more prospecting than projecting. And you're looking at what you have seen him do rather than what you want to see him do.
Yes. Now, here's the two trains of thought that you just said, because I'm glad you find that you finally acknowledged that, because I think people, because of your affinity for Stroud, take away the context of what you really feel about Bryce, which you like I do, because people do the same thing to me.
Same, yeah. They do the same thing with you and Stroud.
Yeah, yeah. They're like, yo, man, you just a Bryce, a young truther or whatever like that. I'm like, do y'all not listen to what I say? Like, listen, as a man, let me go deep for a second, because I was gonna do this earlier. When we were talking about Dwayne Haskins, and I talked about like a lot of the off-field pressures that he had. The reason why when I done my video on CJ Stroud, about at one point there was a Benjamin Albright who has had an eventful Twitter over the last 48 hours. But
I've seen
that. When he was on Julian Council's Locked On Panther show, and he mentioned that the leader in the clubhouse at that time was CJ Stroud. I picked that clip from the Pivot podcast because there's something to be said about a guy who has come into money. You know, people change drastically when money's around, man. You know, and the NIL, like CJ was getting bread, you know, with the NIL, like he drives a G-Wagon, you know what I'm saying? And like, so, but his mom was essentially telling him like, look, we're good. Like, I don't need your money. I'm straight. You know, whatever you want to give us and gift us, you know, take care of us, cool. But it's not your responsibility. We're not putting the responsibility on you. We're not going to try and create this brand and all this other kind of stuff. Like, all of your focus can be on ball. And I think that, because that's one of the things that people may or may not look at. It's one of the things that I look at, because I'm like, that stuff's important, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's extremely important. Can you imagine the confidence that Cam would have had coming into Carolina had the Cecil situation not happen off the field with Mississippi State? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, he probably has a better transition into the league, and he was just basically relying on just God-given talent. But like, even now, like, you kind of look at, like, you know, the way he's going about trying to come back into the league as a backup, and you just like, nah, that ain't it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know some people be like, oh yeah, man, he should be absolutely. Cam is way talented enough to be a backup, but it's the way that he's handling it that is, people are like, you'll back up who, but you won't back up what? Like, huh?
Yeah,
You know
we talked about that too. That's been a crazy situation. How the mighty have fallen, man. It hurts my soul to see Cam in the position that he's in now, essentially having to grovel for a job. It doesn't sit well with me, man.
But see, but here's the thing, like, man, when you, and I know you probably I'm gonna get mad dislikes. I'm gonna have people yelling at me, because when it comes to Cam, and I understand this, there is no rationality when you love people. I get it.
Yeah,
you know,
man.
I get it. You know, but if we're looking at it rationally, if he wasn't our guy on our team, most of us would look at him like, bro, nah, this ain't it. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
like, you know,
I hear you.
This ain't the way to go about this. But
yeah,
regardless, here's the point. I was saying the same thing about Anthony Richardson. I found out that, you know, his I didn't find this out. I mean, it's public information. It's not like I went, you know, researching that like that. But like, apparently his little brother, like, he takes care of, like, he's his dad, you know what I'm saying, or whatever like that, which I think is extremely commendable.
Yeah.
But like, one of the things that they're going to ask, and, you know, whether or not we like it or not, that they're going to worry about is like, okay, is that a potential, if they're considering him, is that going to be a situation where you're going to have more family members you're going to have to take care of, or is this just a one-off with your brother? You know what I'm saying? Because that's what you should do as a big brother, right? But these are those questions with Stroud and Bryce, like Bryce specifically, you know, family, structured unit, you know what I'm saying? You can tell Bryce has been, there was a quote where it was like, you know, you could throw him in a pit of rattlesnakes and his heart won't, you know, increase a bit, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that the majority of that comes from the confidence that you get instilled from you from a stable structure, you know, and there's something to be said for that. It's not the end all be all, but there's indeed something to be said for that.
And it would seem as though that both Bryce and CJ have incredible families backing them. Like that's another thing. Like a lot of times the off the field stuff can end up being really what separates two quarterbacks from one another.
Yeah.
Dude, all the off the field stuff, they check every box. The coaches love them, rant and rave about them. Coaches of opposing defenses all talk about, oh, these guys are the best quarterbacks that we played all season. They had an answer for everything that we were doing. They had a good head on their shoulders. CJ Stroud gave a lot of his NIL money to help out others in the team, which is another big time thing. That's all leadership material. And that's what makes it so easy on some of us fans, where we're like, dude, whoever we draft, we're good with it, man. Both of these guys have enough of a foundation that we should be able to believe in them in the long term and believe in this coaching staff that has 11 Super Bowl rings amongst them to be able to get the most out of these guys. So,
and here's
it's an exciting time, man.
Yes, it is. With CJ, like, let's just say that the processing and the off-script ability with Bryce is not what CJ has. Well, it's not necessarily what he needs. Like I remember hearing like his comp. One of the people that I can't remember who it was. It was one of the blue checks mentioned that his comp was Jared Goff. Okay, well, let's suppose that his comp was Jared Goff. One thing that we know about him is that he's far more accurate than Jared Goff was coming out of college. So if the comp is Jared Goff, I can make a strong argument that the underthrown pass to Brandon Cooks, I believe it was, in the end zone of the Super Bowl, if that pass is completed, which more than likely CJ completes that pass, Jared Goff's a Super Bowl champion. Yeah. And he led the game-winning drive to win in a defensive gridlock game. Stephon Gilmore picks that ball off and the game is over.
And Goff played really well down the stretch for the Lions last year. They had one of the better offenses in the NFL. I don't love that comp, but I can see why someone might try and say Jared Goff.
Well, and let's just suppose from a pocket perspective, let's just say if you bunch a few guys together, Jared Goff, Matt Ryan, or, let's just use those two for example, okay?
Right.
Matt Ryan under Kyle Shanahan orchestrated one of the best offenses in the history of the NFL that year. I mean, they absolutely smoked Green Bay in that NFC Championship game. Smoked them. And to me, it's like, okay, defensively, they couldn't figure it out. But we may not have a Kyle Shanahan, but I think we have a brain trust of guys that can bring a lot of those similar ideas together where a guy like Stroud could thrive. The one thing that I'll say, though, that's different with a guy like Stroud than a guy like Bryce is like if Bryce, everything you love about Bryce as advertised, the processing, the anticipatory throws, the off-script ability, that turns you from Andy Reid with McNabb, Vic, and Cobb to Andy Reid with Patrick Mahomes. And when it's possible. And I'm just going to, I was going to ask you a question, and I'm going to go ahead and answer the question first. We know who we want, but who do we think the Panthers will draft? I'm going to tell you personally, I think the decision was made when they moved up. I think it's Bryce, without question. And the reason I think that is this, and I stand more on that now than ever before, because when you think back about the quarterbacks that Frank Reich did indeed inherit, there's no way that you're Frank looking at the guys that you developed to have. I mean, Carson Wentz, he went from what, 27 and 5, 27 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, something like that, or 9 or whatever, year before last, so I mean, he was solid, with had a solid season. He kind of fell apart down the stretch, and he would make some boneheaded decisions in the red zone, especially. But Frank Reich has developed guys. I just wonder if you're Frank and you watch what Andy Reid, like you just watched your friend, somebody that's your contemporary, go from driving, Honda Civics and, GMC trucks to getting a Ferrari. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, what would I look like if I had something that could operate similar to that? It may not look the same staturally, but it processes similar. and I see similar attributes. What can I do with that? And that's why I'm thinking like, yo, when they had the opportunity and they saw it, because Todd McShay even said it out loud. He was like, yo, the Bears will look back on this 5 years from now and realize they made the biggest mistake in the history of their franchise. And I'm gonna tell you, I believe that. I'm standing on it. If my channel gets blew up and this all blows up in my face, then it just, so be it. But I'm telling you, Cody, it's just something about this dude that if
I hear you,
if he projects better than what he currently is, and you can grow from what you already have despite the size, I'm telling you, man, we will look back at this and be like, how did we get this lucky? Like, this is
oof. So I'll say this. I disagree with you, but not that strongly. So it's not outside of the realm of possibility to me that they had one guy in mind when they made the trade. Mm-hmm. What I've been thinking lately is that they identified a number of quarterbacks that they liked along the process. And they said, okay, let's do a thorough evaluation of every single one of these quarterbacks, and let's make the proper decision for our football team. But like we said earlier, let's give ourselves carte blanche to make that decision no matter who it is. If we decide that it's Bryce or CJ or Anthony Richardson, we don't have to worry about one of these guys having to fall to us. Mm-hmm. We are going to go get the guy that we want to build our offense around, mm-hmm. and our entire team for the long-term future. I have no doubt in my mind that they had a leader in the clubhouse. But the reason why I say I don't necessarily know that they were sold on one player is because in my mind, there's no way that they were done with the evaluation process. They had yet to do any of their in-person visits, which is incredibly important. You were talking a little bit earlier about, well, if you have a player like that pump fake or that theoretical pump fake that could have taken place on CJ Stroud's film right there, you get the opportunity to ask them in-depth questions, mm-hmm. and know what they know, understand the type of offense that they were being asked to run and what they were seeing on each individual play, ask them what they would want to do better. Keep in mind, when you're at the combine, they get maybe 15 minutes with each one of these players. Like, it's just not enough due diligence for these $1 million franchises to make a fully committed decision one way or the other. Mm-hmm. I think number one was giving yourself the leeway to have a thorough evaluation process of all of these guys and then making your pick at number one. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe right now, maybe today, we're recording this on April the 8th. Maybe right now, maybe they're done with that. Maybe they know who they want. I don't believe we've had in-person visits with either of them yet. I know we're going to. Mm-hmm. But, and another thing I've said too, John, look how torn Panther fans are on these two players, right? You have heavily entrenched camps that are firmly in favor of Bryce or firmly in favor of CJ. It doesn't surprise me if it's the exact same way in the Panthers front office. Like, it looked like Josh McCown loved him some CJ Stroud, mm-hmm. at that pro day, man. Like, and he said that in his video with Josh Norris. He really likes what he sees from CJ Stroud. Yeah. I could also see that there were, we were talking about Bryce being eclipsed on a few of those plays. Maybe that does worry somebody a little bit more about Bryce than it does CJ. Then I have no doubt that there are people like you and many others who look at Bryce Young and say, hey, man, you can't teach that. You either have the ability to do that or you don't. So it's not crazy to me that this coaching staff has a lot of different varying opinions. And I believe Frank Reich has the type of leadership quality that he's going to take all of that information, him and Scott Fitterer, and they're going to make the decision that they feel is best for the Carolina Panthers. Whether they've made that right now at this moment, I'm not sure. I don't know.
And I'll add to what you're saying and say this. So to give from a fan perspective clarification on why I'm big on Bryce, right, is I'm kind of afraid. I have FOMO when it comes to Bryce Young, fear of missing. I really do.
Yeah.
Because when I listen to the people that really do this, talk about it, that really study tape, that really evaluate.
They love
One of my favorite minds is Greg Cosell. And when I heard Greg Cosell say, like, from a processing perspective and his ability to throw and with anticipation, he says, I haven't personally seen anything like it since Andrew Luck. And I was like, wait, what? You know what I'm saying?
And that has to matter because Greg Cosell has seen them all. He's been around.
Yeah. I mean, this is the NFL Films guy. His dad was the creator of NFL Films. All the music the great music that you get, that was all his dad.
Yeah.
And so the question to me is like, okay, I'm going to trust whatever they do, because consequently, you could also make this argument. Because Greg Cosell said this. He said this, and I said this before I heard him say this. So I'm not trying to have, like, kudos over him or whatever. With Richardson, I'm telling you, Cody, the 53% completion percentage is, that's one thing that's scary. But when you watch him and how he steps up in the pocket, one of his most under appreciated things is his throwing motion, how fluid it is, like how just easy he throws the ball. If he lands in a place where he can develop and you project that he can figure it out, you've never seen anything like him. Never.
Yeah.
It'll be the next Cam. I could argue, I'll make a strong argument, better. I think I make a strong argument that if he, again, that's a if he figures it out. And I know a lot of people would be like, yo, you're tripping, because we seen what Cam has done and we saw what Cam was in college and how he progressed. But there are things about his game, especially from the throwing perspective, that you don't really see often. Like, there's very few guys that drive the ball like he can with that kind of effortlessness and have the fluidity with having all that rigidity as from a muscle perspective. And so that's one of those things that I just don't see them trading up this far to take a chance like that when you have this guy over here that, like I said, Cody, it could be two people. It could be Chicago and us if it turns out that this guy goes to the Texans. And even, CJ Stroud might be straight with us. He might be really good. But then you look at this kid down here, and him and Mahomes are he's replaced Burrow as, the guy that's battling Mahomes, every year for the AFC Championship title. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like, it would just be like, man, like we had it.
Can I give you my thought on what I think's going to happen?
Yeah.
And I don't wish it. And I think a lot of fans are going to be upset when I say it. It wouldn't surprise me if Atlanta moves up to number 3
and gets Richardson.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Cody,
with all this talk of Lamar, like, instead of paying him whatever guarantee he wants, go and get a guy who has a similar physical upside, but who is much cheaper, and you'll be able to put him on a rookie contract, put him with Kyle Pitts, put him with Drake London. And to that point about the completion percentage, there was a lot of drops on this film too. There was a lot of drop passes. There were some things that 53% doesn't necessarily tell the entire story. And like I said earlier, guys, if you want, let us know in the chat if you would like to see, even me and Big John. I'll invite John back to do it again. We can break down some Anthony Richardson if that would interest you guys. I just know that so much of the discussion is on Bryce and CJ. I wanted to kind of hone in on that and
absolutely
and focus in on that. Yeah.
On every level, though, with Anthony Richardson, because I'm looking at the chart right now, on target percentage by throw depth, he's inaccurate on every level, except for, oddly enough, 31 plus yards down the field, where he was highest in all of college football.
Yeah. He has a special talent, man.
Yeah.
He has a special talent. And so do these two guys that we just watched today. John, this has been incredible, man. I thank you so much for joining me on this. Tell everybody where they can find you online and find your content.
Yeah, man. The One Carolina Show on YouTube. You can follow me on The One Carolina on Twitter and also Instagram. And I appreciate, and if you like the merch, go get them. The One Carolina merch, go to onecarolinashop.com and grab yourself some merch, man. I appreciate that.
Hey, that's it, man. Well, John, I thank you so much for joining me, man. This has been fun. I have a feeling that we're probably going to do some more of these. Keep it tuned to the C3 Panthers podcast. We're going to continue to do these film room sessions as we build up to the draft. My name is Cody Lashney, 1/4 of the C3 Panthers podcast. We appreciate you for joining us and hanging out for the film session. Until next time, for another edition of the C3 Film Room, I'm Cody Lashney, signing out.